A good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. Our afternoon edition of the show begins here at 1:01 p.m. on April 13th, a Monday, as we embark on another week that we anticipate being busy as always. We appreciate all of you guys for being here with us for that week. We also, as always, appreciate the People's Producer, Nia Campbell, for joining us in studio here. Nia, good weekend, good Monday. What's going on?
Very productive weekend, and yeah, I'm having a good Monday.
You used an interesting word there, productive. You got some stuff done this weekend?
I got a lot done.
Okay. Errands, house,
self-care, all of it.
self-care. You got to have a self-care Saturday or Sunday every once in a while. It is pivotal to what we need as human beings. Now, as we embark upon this week, we want to first touch on the forecast. We are going to have a very hot week. We may be close to record high temperatures even in the middle of the week. It's going to be mid to high 80s. We may reach 90. These are very above average temperatures for early April. It almost feels a little closer to a June week than an April week, and we remain in very dry, drought-like conditions. We have not had the amount of rain that we typically would hope for to prevent those drought-like conditions. So we'll be checking in and out on that forecast as we go. But to start the show, we actually stay local, but we move to a major story to come from the Virginia Beach oceanfront this weekend. Now, that is in regards to a shooting that happened on 14th Street and Atlantic Avenue on Saturday night. 8 people were shot, no fatalities, but 8 shooting victims, all aged 17 to 24, and as we said, all expected to survive. So more violence at the oceanfront. This comes just over a month from another shooting at the oceanfront. That particular shooting in early March led to a 7 p.m. curfew being instituted for minors. It remains to be seen what lawmakers, city officials, law enforcement will look to do following this particular shooting. Now again, this is around 9:50 p.m. that this took place, 14th Street and Atlantic Avenue late on Saturday night. All expected to survive, but the injuries range from non-life-threatening to serious. Police say 2 unrelated groups of young adults and juveniles began shooting at each other after an altercation. Detectives have determined at least 3 suspects exchanged gunfire. One of the accused was also among the 8 individuals who have been shot, and one of the accused has been apprehended. Jemiah Williams, 18 years old, of Henrico County, has been charged. This is a lengthy list here. I'm going to move through it quickly. 7 counts of aggravated assault, 7 counts of use of a firearm in commission of a felony, 7 counts of reckless handling of a firearm with injury, 3 counts of violation of a protective order. Jemiah Williams has been apprehended. She is expected to appear in court 2 different times today, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and we do have reporters covering her court appearances, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on 13 News Now. You can get updates directly from those reporters. As for the other suspects, Isaiah Charity, 18 years old, out of Richmond, is being sought on outstanding warrants right now. Police are still looking for information on his whereabouts. There is a third suspect who is also being pursued by police. They're still seeking information on his identity. He is described in our web article as an unidentified black male who was wearing a dark-colored hoodie and possible red lettering on the back. So no identity on that particular suspect, but being pursued by police, both in terms of whereabout and identification. The 7 people who were shot range from males to females, from 17 to 24, and come from all over: Portsmouth, Richmond, Lancaster, Chesterfield, and even Georgia for the victims in this shooting. And again, this comes a month after another oceanfront shooting that led to that curfew in the area, 7 o'clock p.m. for minors. So this is a developing story. We will continue to monitor it, and coming up at 3 o'clock p.m., we are going to have a live press conference right here, or streaming right here on 13 News Now Plus, and also on 13 News Now, that will have Chief Newdigate, the police chief in Virginia Beach, and Mayor Bobby Dyer, of course, the mayor in Virginia Beach, both speaking at 3 o'clock p.m., and we will carry that right here on Live Impact News, and it'll be on our linear station as well, 13 News Now. So we look ahead to that. as we continue to cover violence at the oceanfront over the weekend. Again, that's 14th Street in Atlantic. That's very close to the 16th Street Pier, very close to the Boardwalk Pier and the 16th Street Hub that is very popular for tourists and locals alike. So more coverage to come on that. So now that we wanted to give that update right off the top, let's pivot back to the very first thing we mentioned, which is often the first thing we mentioned, which is the weather. Taylor Stephenson, after a very long day of work, has been kind enough to join us in the studio here for a quick forecast. Taylor, 1, you're the best for that. 2, how's everything and what are we looking at here?
So thank you for having me, of course, every day. What we're looking at is a very abnormally warm week here in Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina, where temperatures are going to soar. I mean, it's going to feel more like mid-June, maybe even closer to July, than it will feel like mid-April. So, of course, weather headline, the biggest one is the heat that's on the way. Even today will be, quote, one of the coolest days over the next 2 to 3 days as temperatures continue to climb. We'll see summer-like high temperatures, as I mentioned, feeling more like June than mid-April. And then I'm watching for the rain that will start to really come in play by Sunday. But still, we have to wait 5 to 6 days to see any rain. And I'll tell you why that's not the best thing for us here around the coast. Here's a live look from our Skyview and our Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview, and you can see that we do have some high thin clouds making conditions partly sunny, but still looks like a really nice day. The other thing I noticed actually outside during my break today is that the trees are really in full bloom. Everything, as you see downtown, green and producing a lot of pollen. Temperatures right now in the low 80s. We've already surpassed our normal high temperature easily this afternoon. Our normal high for this time of year is around 69 to 70 degrees. It's 81 degrees, so we're already easily 10 degrees warmer than normal. But now, the direction of winds is very important. South winds, in general, pump in warm air. But a southwest wind gives you more warm, dry air. A southeast wind, because it's coming over the Atlantic Ocean, will give you more warm, humid air. So outside right now, the humidity, like the percentage, is only 42%. So it feels actually very comfortable outside, but it is breezy with sustained winds anywhere from 20 to 25 miles per hour. Temperatures right now area-wide in the upper 70s and lower 80s. We do have even some mid to upper 70s around the Eastern Shore, a place that usually stays much cooler, and you can see that it's even nice for this time of year. 81 again in Norfolk, 79 now in Virginia Beach, 80 in West Point, 80 in Williamsburg, 80 in Suffolk, 77 in Elizabeth City, and really Currituck through Hosky and through Roanoke Rapids. Now, Hosky and Roanoke Rapids, I'll talk about to you a little bit more later because we have some concerns about some very severe drought that's ongoing. Go ahead. Yes.
I was going to say that drought is something that we've been keeping an eye on, and no rain whatsoever over the weekend, and it's getting hotter. We talked about this quite a bit in the morning. Go ahead. I wanted you were headed there anyway.
Yeah, and that's our main concern. There's like 2 big weather stories this week. One is the fact that we could maybe see some record-tying or record-breaking high temperatures for this time of year. Number 2 is the fact that it's very dry, and we had very little rainfall over the past couple of weeks. Now, for most of us, man, we like to see no rain, right? It doesn't mess up our plans. You're able to just go outside without thinking about the umbrella, the poncho. But when it comes to our vegetation, especially for those who are farmers in the area, you do need rainfall to sustain your crops, or even vegetation. Some people have plants. You need water, and a lot of times when you don't have rain, you're in the middle of a drought, you're spending more money running the sprinkler system than letting the atmosphere do what it does and rain, right? And so we really do need some rain. You can see the rain is being dumped on Washington, D.C., up through northern Virginia, even to the Appalachian region, and we are just outside of that area to see rain. I mean, even portions north and west of Richmond getting some rain as well. You were going to comment, Connor?
We're just missing it, which is tough. You mentioned sprinklers. Is it, would that be advice to people? Is in these drought conditions, maybe run those sprinklers more often than you typically would?
I would just say try your best to water your grass. I would say probably at least once this week, just because we are in those drier conditions. The rain is coming. Now, For pollen, and I know people are probably like, I need a car wash so bad. My car is covered in pollen. It just feels like, to me, sometimes washing your car seems like a waste of money, only because the very next day after you wash it, I feel like pollen just comes right on back. I see Naya nodding in the corner of my eye. So I can tell that she's gone through that personal experience of the car wash not really doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I did my car wash by hand. So the next day when I woke up and it was on my car, I was like,
was it worth it?
Still props to you, though, for washing your car by hand.
Yes.
You deserve some kudos for that.
No, for real.
And speaking of kudos, amazing peripheral vision. You didn't glance over there even at all, and you caught Naya.
Yeah,
I was like this.
Yeah, I have really good peripheral, so I could literally see probably like right about here. But I also have very good vision, so I catch everything. Now, if you're talking to me and you're talking around my face, I'm not going to hear what you say. So I feel like it's tit for tat. I have the power of the eye, and I lose the power of the ears.
Your senses balance each other out.
They do.
Right? If you can't hear that,
Poor
good,
hearing.
your eyes are just amplified.
Yes.
You're doing great. Okay, good to know. Okay, we'll make sure we don't make any faces at each other. Wow. Taylor's forecasting. She will see it, Naya.
I will see it, but most of the time I will ignore it. It's funny because a lot of people don't realize during weather, when we're like on TV, there's a lot going on in the background and you still have to tune it out. So I notice things that are happening. I choose to compartmentalize and say, okay, I'll talk about that later and focus on what I'm doing right now.
Who is the most distracting anchor to do a forecast with during the 4, 5, and 6?
Dana.
Okay.
Dana by far, but
she wants to, right?
Yes, because she's doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
It's funny because, of course, you guys don't see the behind the scenes or during breaks, but Dana and I we have a really strong relationship, and so we're kind of like, and Naya has witnessed this working on the weekend mornings with us. It is like older sister, little sister, and we get on each other's nerves during breaks or during commercials or when we're in the middle of a story, and so it is very distracting. She'll purposely make faces at me to get me to laugh, and I have to focus, but I feel like it's made me a better meteorologist because I know how to really tune out the noise. But I just know I get my get back later on.
That was the whole time. She was really just doing some helping you train the whole time.
Right. Yeah. Don't give her that idea because she'll take it and be like, yes, of course, I'm just teaching her how to be better.
You're welcome, Taylor. Okay, good to know. Dana Smith, one of our very best. You can see her at 5 and 6.
Yes.
Just know that when she's off camera,
she's a menace. But going back to weather, again, the rain really hard to come by. You can see from our satellite and radar that the rain is just on the horizon, but we will not see it today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So on the bright side, your plans outdoors are perfect from now through Saturday, even for those who have been complaining to me about when is beach weather. Beach weather is this week. Once we get to the 80s, it really overcomes that sea breeze. And so I would say if you want to head to the beach, this week is going to be perfect, especially on Wednesday and Thursday. Now we get to Sunday and then rain starts to come in. That's along our next cold front. That cold front will cool us down for next week. So here's a look at the rest of the day, and you can see the clouds will stick around for us. So it'll be mostly cloudy to partly sunny. Temperatures, though, by 3 p.m. in the mid 80s. Again, that's more like mid-June temperatures. So beautiful conditions for us across the area as we get into your afternoon. Today, the winds will still be gusty up to about 25 miles per hour. Even later on this evening, for those who may be, watching Life Impact News on their lunch break, or maybe you're at home and you're like, okay, maybe I have some stuff to do during the afternoon. How about the evening time? Evening time, honestly, for me, it's probably going to be like the best time to go for a walk because temperatures will be in the upper 70s, lower 80s, still warm, but it's not going to be that higher heat that we're going to see around 3 o'clock. So if you want to head out, maybe walk the dogs or you're going for a walk, I love walking around Norfolk because it's just so pretty, but especially during this time of year, you're not worried about the cold or the extreme hot. This is going to be a perfect day to do some outdoor exercise as well. Later on this evening, for those who work the third shift, and you're having to wake up around 9, 10 o'clock, you're heading into work, temperatures will still be very nice, upper 60s to low to mid 70s. So beautiful. But again, as I mentioned earlier, pollen is just going to be our worst enemy this week, along with the lack of rainfall. Maple, oak, and elm will be the main tree pollen allergens for today in the extreme range for tree pollen. Grass pollen will also be in the medium range. Ragweed pollen and mold spores not in the picture. Now, because it will be dry and warm for the rest of the week, I expect those pollen levels to remain elevated in the high to very high range. Now, tomorrow we start off even warmer, mid 60s. Again, our normal high temperature this time of year is around 69 to 70 degrees. So we're only going to be 5 degrees shy of our normal high temperature around 6 a.m. So a really warm start to the day. We get to the afternoon, it will be a touch warmer than today. Highs in the mid 80s, partly cloudy conditions. But again, the other big story is the lack of rainfall. From now through Saturday, maybe even the smallest chance of rain is in the picture, but even that will be a very, very low chance. It's not until we get to Sunday where isolated scattered showers are possible along our cold front, and then Monday, maybe some lingering rainfall early on Monday morning. But we could use any rain we can get, because here's a look at that drought monitor. South side of Hampton Roads into northeastern North Carolina, all the way up through Richmond, and then curving back to the eastern shore, Middle Peninsula, a moderate drought. In that yellow color from Hampton up through Williamsburg into the I-95 and I-85 conjunction, you're seeing that we are underneath the abnormally dry conditions. In that bright yellow, that's the lowest level of drought. You get into the orange colors, Melfa through Tappahannock, out through Farmville, Emporia, and south via Albemarle, that's severe drought. And then in the red, Roanoke Rapids through the I-85 and I-95 corridors, just to the west of Ahoskie, that's extreme drought. And so that will take a lot of rainfall to overcome. But any rain we can get will start to help to etch away at this drought. But it looks like even after we get past Sunday, we warm up and we dry out once again. So we are watching for some of those drier conditions. So your 5 to 7 forecast shows that temperatures by Wednesday will soar to near 90 degrees. Our record high temperature this time of year for our record high temperature for April 15th, it is 90 degrees. And we actually set that very recently in 2024, so just 2 years ago. Now, can we reach 90? It's possible, especially when you have south winds. A lot of times these high temperatures, they overperform. So we may forecast 89 on Wednesday, but it's a lot of times we get to the afternoon and those south winds just nudges right above. So we could reach 90, maybe even 91 degrees on Wednesday. Thursday, we're also looking to see if we'll get a record high. Now, the record high temperature for Thursday is 91. So we're just a little bit shy of me putting it on the 7-day forecast just because I don't know if we'll make it to that threshold. Wednesday is more likely to be that record tying or record breaking day. Now, I had to put my little mama bear shoes on, even though I don't have kids. Y'all are my kids. If you have not done your taxes, please do them. They are due on Wednesday. Please do your taxes. Now, if you have not done your taxes and you feel like you can't get them done in the next 48 hours, make sure that you file a tax extension, because you can do that. So just make sure you do your taxes. I've had too many people, and it's really only 2 people, too many that have told me they have not finished their taxes yet. That stresses me out for you. Please do your taxes. But it's due on Wednesday. So instead of battling the high heat during the afternoon, why don't you sit in front of the air conditioner and do your taxes? Thank you. Okay, by the time we get into the weekend, temperatures will be in the 80s, and we'll stay in the 80s. So a beautiful first half of the weekend. I mean, look at Saturday. I mean, that is really beach weather for Hampton Roads. Mid 80s, sunshine. It's Sunday where I'm forecasting some afternoon showers to come along, but even those chances are low. About 30% chance of rain there on Sunday for the area. Highs remain in the mid 80s. And then next week, we're watching for temperatures to fall behind that front to the 60s on Monday and Tuesday, and then rising right back on into the 80s by the middle of next week.
Okay.
Which takes us near the end of April.
Beach day Saturday.
Yes.
Those crisp early mornings aren't going to be so crisp. They're going to be a
Nope.
little warmer.
Yep.
And do your taxes. Listen
your
to Taylor.
taxes.
Do your taxes. Trust me, the effort that you have to put in to do them is going to be far less than the effort that it's going to take if you don't get them done in time.
Yes.
That is not something that you want to mess with. So thank you to Taylor Stephenson, not only for the forecast, but for the motherly advice to her adopted children. And is there anything else we need to know?
That's about it. I want you guys to enjoy your week. Oh, also make sure you're drinking plenty of water this week, wearing sunscreen. Even on cloudy days, you can still get tan. You can still get a sunburn. UV rays can make it through the cloud cover. But especially on those days where we're forecasting more sunny conditions, absolutely you need the sunscreen. Take it from me, from someone who just came from on vacation. I have a sunburn. It is not pleasant. So please wear the sunscreen. And I even wore sunscreen. I still got a sunburn. So, it is what it is. But
what was your SPF?
I don't know what it was.
Oh, no. That sounds like 15 to me.
It may have been 30. It may have been 30.
Right, 30.
Maybe 30. But it definitely wasn't enough.
Did you reapply?
I did.
Dang, you did all the right things.
I did. I reapplied. But the Belizean sun is different than Virginia Beach sun.
Got a little extra oomph to it. Mm-hmm. That's why we go there. but then
hey, the tan, it's nice, so I'll take it.
All right, so Taylor Stephenson, fresh off a vacation, still spending extra time. This is beyond. Taylor's shift is over, guys. She's hanging out with us just to help us and you out here after her regular duties are already completed. So we appreciate you, Taylor. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
As for us here on Live Impact News, we're going to do a commercial break here. When we come back, we've got some live events that we're monitoring and plenty of headlines to go through. Stay with us for more Live Impact News. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're going to go to one of our live feeds here, actually. And what this is, it's going to look a little bit confusing as we pull it up here, sort of a nondescript house location landscape. But this is actually a investigation that is happening right now. This is an FBI raid at the home of a suspect arrested in an OpenAI CEO home attack. Now, OpenAI, obviously an artificial intelligence company, one of the most newsworthy, certainly, and one of the larger ones. That CEO is Sam Altman. You may have heard of him. He has become a very publicized figure in the world of artificial intelligence, as that industry has become one of the flashpoints of society here in 2025 and 2026. And he was actually targeted in an attack last week that involved an alleged Molotov cocktail attack on his home, according to a statement by the San Francisco Police Department on X. The individual allegedly also made threats against OpenAI's headquarters. A 20-year-old suspect has been arrested in connection to that attack with the alleged Molotov cocktail. But that is actually different from what's being investigated here. A second attack reported to target Sam Altman on Sunday morning at his home in San Francisco. 2 suspects were arrested following an attempted shooting and charged with negligent discharge, according to a police report. And we are getting a lot of this reporting from Yahoo Finance. And so there is currently an investigation looking for more information on this second attack. That is 2 attacks now on a very short period of time on Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, or at least attacks that were allegedly targeted at Sam Altman in particular, the CEO of OpenAI. So that is what we're seeing on our screen right now. This is live currently as that investigation is ongoing. Again, Sam Altman has become a very noteworthy figure in the world of artificial intelligence, and the world of artificial intelligence has caused a massive amount of news, opinions, and change in our society. So something that we will continue to monitor. If there more information comes out about suspects, apprehensions, information, we'll try to bring that to you as soon as we can. In the meantime, just before we came on air here on Live Impact News, President Donald Trump had an event at the White House that was open to the press and seemed to be more of sort of a free-flowing day. We don't know, an individual dropping McDonald's off at the White House. We don't know what level of comment we're going to get from President Trump, but this just happened right before we came on air. So we do want to listen into this recording, see if anything of note comes from President Trump. He was very active on social media this weekend, targeting a number of people, including Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger and Pope Leo. So let's listen in, and then we'll go through some of the weekend activity, especially pertaining to President Trump's social media. For now, let's go out to the White House from just earlier today.
McDonald's.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. I have your DoorDash order for you, Mr. President.
That's very nice. Look at this. This doesn't look staged, does it?
They're all your favorites.
That's good. These are good. DoorDash is doing a good job. So, the reason for this is the fact that I heard you picked up an extra $11,000 that you didn't get because the tax bill was so big. The refund was the biggest you've ever had. Is that a correct statement?
It definitely was. Yeah, I saved over $11,000 by not having to claim.
Was that surprising to you?
It was very surprising. Very
A
surprising.
great big beautiful bill. And that doesn't include overtime in your case. This is only just based on what we did in terms of every other aspect of the tax bill, right?
Yes, sir.
So it was 11,007.
Yes, sir.
Isn't that incredible? And that's what it is. The tax cut, it's really, we call it the great big beautiful bill. We should call it the great big beautiful tax cut bill because it's tremendous amounts of money. And that's overtime. That's also on Social Security, as you know.
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing.
Yes, it
And
is.
you're really nice. Would you like to do a little news conference with me with these people? These are not the nicest people. They're not nice like you. You know that, right?
I'll do whatever you ask me to do, sir.
So the no tax on tips is something special, right?
It's very special.
And that's the one that really pertains to you more than anything else.
Yes, sir.
It's fantastic. And so it's such an honor to meet you. And I think you voted for me, did you?
Maybe.
Yeah. I heard you're a great supporter. We appreciate it. I'll put this over here. And why don't we have a news conference with the press? Want to do it?
Sure.
You don't have to space safety much. I think they're looking about hormones straight and various other things. Do you have any questions?
Mr. President, did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as the doctor, and it had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11,000, I understand your husband's going through treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's
He
going
has
through some
cancer.
very serious cancer treatment, so
Yes, sir.
this goes a long way.
Yes, sir. It sure does.
Mr. President, are another round of talks planned with Iran? And if so, will you send Vice President J.D. Vance with?
Well, he's done a good job. It's Steve and Jared. They've all done a very good job. And I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly. Very badly.
What was the sticking point over? You said it was over nuclear.
It was over nuclear. Very similar. Yeah, very good. I guess you're listening. It's over the fact that they will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran, you marking it down? Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal. There'll never be a deal. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and we're going to get the dust back. We'll get it back either. We'll get it back from them or we'll take it.
Mr. President, as far as the naval blockade is concerned, what's the end game? Is it to force Iran back to the negotiating table? Is it to open up the strait so that gas prices ultimately come down?
Maybe everything. I mean, both of those things, certainly, and more. We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. And the amazing thing is, we don't, can you believe this? We don't use the Strait. We don't need the Strait. We have our own oil and gas, much more than we need. We have more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia. Think of this. We produce more. Saudi Arabia, and add Russia to it. Substantially more. And by next year, we'll have double that amount. So we don't need it, but the world needs it. And many ships are heading to our country right now as we speak to load up with the best. Really, I guess you could say, somebody said the best and sweetest. I don't know exactly what sweet is, but when it relates to oil, it's a good thing. But they're coming to our country right now. There are many boats coming to our country. Now, it could very well be this is going to be settled before that. We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. They would like to work a deal.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those specific
Yeah, other countries are going to also.
Which countries, sir?
We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow.
Has the blockade started, sir?
Yeah, started 10 o'clock.
Bishop Robert Barron supports you and your policies. He praises you for defending religious freedom.
Yeah.
He now says you owe Pope Leo an apology. Will you apologize?
No, I don't, because Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result. You have hundreds of millions of people dead, and it's not going to happen. So I can't. I think he's very weak on crime and other things. So I'm not. I mean, he went public. I'm just responding to Pope Leo, and his brother is a big MAGA person, and he's a great guy, Louis. And I said I like Louis better than I like the Pope. Now you have to have law and order in our country, and that's what we have now. We have the lowest crime numbers we've had in a long time, despite the fact that many criminals were allowed into our country, but we've gotten a lot of them out. We've done a great job on crime. So we have the lowest murder rate in 125 years, since 1900, the lowest murder rate. So we believe strongly in law and order, and he seemed to have a problem with that, so there's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong. The other thing is he didn't like what we're doing with respect to Iran, but Iran is wants to be a nuclear nation so they can exterminate the world. Not going to happen.
And Mr. President, on Iran, if the deal is not reached by the end of the ceasefire, does your threat from before still stand?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on that, but it won't be pleasant for them. Let me put it that way.
Do you still plan to charge a toll to use the Strait of Hormuz, sir?
Has your timetable changed in any way in terms of ending this conflict?
No, it's going on. Because right now there's no fighting. Right now we have a blockade. They're doing no business. I didn't like seeing boats come out if they were doing business with Iran, but if they weren't, no boats came out. So now Iran is doing absolutely no business, and we're going to keep it that way very easily. Don't forget, their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is gone, their radar is gone, and their leaders are gone. It's a lot.
Do you still want to charge a toll?
Coming from predominantly going to China, Mr. President, has Xi Jinping reached out and maybe?
No, but we have a very good relationship with China. He would like to see this ended also. He certainly wants it ended. Everyone, I want to see it ended too, but we can't give a nuclear weapon to a group of people that have caused nothing but havoc for 47 years. Look, I'm the president that's done something about it. This should have been, and many other presidents regret that they didn't. So I'm doing something.
President, Ukraine impeachment documents that were just declassified show that Eric Charanella not only submitted false information, but that he had no direct knowledge of the alleged conversation. It was all hearsay. Do you feel vindicated by those?
Yeah, I do. They're a bunch of crooked people. You're talking about with respect to all of the things that they put against me? Yeah. Well, it's come out that in so many different ways. Thank you very much for that question. I appreciate it. But in so many different ways, the election was rigged. The 2020 election was rigged. We found that out. What you just said is just a piece of that. It's a big piece, but minor, relatively speaking, compared to what they did. They cheated on the election. They cheated on the vote. They cheated in every way possible, and it's the only way we got an incompetent man to be a president. And he was an incompetent man. Many of the things that we're talking about, even including this would have been settled a long time ago, not now. And it should have been settled by other presidents. But the election was a rigged election. We can't let that happen to our country.
It's concealment of exculpatory information. What should happen?
Well, it's a very serious charge against them and the Democrats. They cheat. They can't get elected with their policy. So their policy is no good. They want to have, open borders. They want to have men playing in women's sport. Do you think that men should play in women's sports?
I really don't have an opinion on that.
You don't, I'll bet
No,
you do.
No, I'm here about no
Pizza.
tax on tips.
Yeah.
Ma'am, maybe know your name, please. Have you delivered to the White House
Is it your
before?
understanding, Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is it your understanding that during this period of time, while the U.S. has instituted this naval blockade, that oil companies will be able to send their oil tankers through the strait, get more oil out from this area?
Yeah, I think they're going to be doing very well there, and I think they're doing very well here. You know, a lot of tankers are coming up here. They're coming in empty and out full. And we have a great capacity to take care of that business.
Ma'am, may we know your name, please? Have you delivered to the White House before?
I have not. My name is Sharon Simmons.
And are the White House good tippers? Do you know?
Wait.
Potentially. Yes, very.
Mr. President, can I ask you something
That's
about
great.
Cuba?
Thank you. You reminded me.
Mr. President, one on Cuba, sir. You previously said that you had no problem with countries sending fuel to Cuba after previously promising to tariff them. What happened? What changed?
Well, we're going to see with Cuba. Cuba's another story. Cuba's been a terribly run country for a long time. It's got a bad system. It's been very oppressive, as you know. And we have a lot of great Cuban Americans, all of whom just about voted for me. And they were treated very badly. In many cases, family members have been killed. They've been beaten up and mugged, and terrible things happened in Cuba. And Cuba's a failing nation. And we're going to do this, and we may stop by Cuba after we're finished with this. But Cuba is a nation that was just been horribly run for many years by Castro.
You said raised up.
Housing regulator Bill Pulte. Regarding those two recent referrals for Letitia James for insurance fraud, do you know if federal prosecutors have evidence to charge?
Well, I don't know. I know she's a very corrupt person. And you're talking about the so-called Attorney General of New York. She's a very corrupt person. That's been proven now. And I know I have nothing to do with it, but they're looking at things all over the place, more than one state concerning her, and concerning people like Comey, who's a dirty cop. Comey's a dirty cop, and dirty cops are bad. Nobody likes the police more than me, the law enforcement more than me, but Comey's a totally dirty cop, and we're not gonna stand for it. Yeah.
The UFC fight that's happening at the White House this summer, the UFC typically numbers those fights consecutively, but should they label this one UFC 1776?
That's a good idea. I'll tell that to Dana White. I like that idea, actually. I will say I've been involved with a lot of big events. I have never had an event that's had more interest in the UFC fight that we have right at the front door. Right there, they're going to start building about a 4,500 seat arena. And then in the back, at the Ellipse, we're going to have maybe 100,000, 50 to 100,000 people, I guess. They're building tremendous stages, and we're going to have massive screens of the fight. And it's a very popular sport. But I have never been involved, because of the White House and everything. There's a lot of reasons for it. But we're having a fight at the White House on June 14th, and we're going to have an arena built right at the front door. And if you want, is your husband up to coming? Do you think? Does he like UFC?
He might.
If he's feeling good, we'll make sure you come, okay?
That would be wonderful.
That's
Thank
better
you.
than the tip I just gave you. That's a lot better. But no, if he's feeling good, right? Yeah. Is he doing okay? Is he going to be okay?
He's doing very well. He's doing very well. He actually, during the process, he wrote a book. And
Go ahead, give him the name. Maybe you're saying.
He hasn't had it published yet, but it's a book on humility, and his name is Leo, and he's just
good guy. Doing
good. He's doing great.
How long are you married?
We have been married for 6 years.
Oh,
but we've, like most people, we've been together for over 10. So
that's very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's very nice to say hello to him. He's going to be good. Okay, he's going to get better, and he's going to be good.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I want to thank you all, and I especially want to thank you for being here.
Well, I want to thank you for the no tax on tips.
That's good.
It has helped my family out immensely, and I definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, the one thing that I just in leaving, we've had more good press for a change, having to do with the fact that people are receiving more money from their tax refunds than they ever thought possible. We had a man the other day got $5,000, another one got $7,000. They weren't expecting anything like this, and it's because of the great big beautiful bill. And that's why you came, and I really appreciate it. And tell your husband to get better.
I will.
And if he's feeling good, you'll come up and you'll watch that fight.
All
Okay,
right.
June
I
14th.
appreciate it.
All
Thank
right?
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Any update on
Thank
the
you. Thank you.
Okay, President Donald Trump outside of the White House there, both welcoming a DoorDash employee who is, based on her words, benefiting from the no tax on tips policy, and then, of course, answering questions from a gathered press as well. In addition, taking aim at Letitia James and James Comey, two people who were reported by multiple outlets as being among President Donald Trump's political enemies. We know that Pam Bondi was let go from her position as Attorney General and the head of the Department of Justice after there was, again, reporting that the cases from the DOJ against Trump's perceived enemies were not strong enough, were not active enough. Letitia James, of course, at one point had one of those cases brought against her for a house that she was renting here in Norfolk. And we remember outside of a Norfolk courthouse, she gave a very passionate speech following legal activity in that case. So the Letitia James, again, being mentioned by President Trump in addition to James Comey, who he called a dirty cop. Also, quotes from President Trump this morning in regards to the conflict in Iran. I can tell you that we've been called by the other side. We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. Of course, a deal did not come to fruition after Vice President J.D. Vance brought a cohort of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to speak with Iranian diplomats over the weekend. They were not able to reach a deal on a permanent resolution to the war. Trump also confirming that a blockade started at 10 a.m., the United States putting that blockade in place ostensibly as a response to the stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz that Iran has had since the start of this war. Now, we were going to go over some of the social media activity involving the president in regards to the Pope as well as Governor Abigail Spanberger, but we've had a live event come up that we want to get to right now. This is St. Paul, Minnesota. City officials are holding a news conference after pressing charges against federal officials related to the ICE enforcement operation in Minnesota. Let's go live out to St. Paul right now.
Operate in that environment on a daily basis, knowing that we're limited by the Constitution, by laws, both federal and state, and we abide by them. When someone breaches those limits of authority, there are consequences. There are checks and balances. There is a federal court system that can provide a check and balance to ICE, but also the state and local authorities have the authority to provide a check and balance to what ICE does. When citizens call us and they say, hey, we think our rights have been abused, we have an obligation to follow up and find out what happened. So you've heard the term back in January, absolute immunity. There is no such thing as absolute immunity for federal agents. There is qualified immunity for all law enforcement in a lot of different capacities. But seizing a person out of their home who's an American citizen, they're not immune from that. So yes, we've taken this very seriously, and we followed up with the victim, the witnesses, and when we attempt to gather information from the federal government, we have not been successful. So this is the only route available, is to take the TUI request into federal court. John?
And I in closing, before we stand for questions, I just also want to make it very clear that we are going to be dogged in our pursuit of the truth. And so that means utilizing every available avenue of truth finding and accountability. So that could include convening a Ramsey County jury. It could include a federal lawsuit where we would seek that information from the federal government. I also want to make it very clear that we are not going to let this go. And what that means is that this could take a long time. And I believe that the statute of limitations in these cases can be told. And the reason why it can be told is if there's fraud or concealment done by the actors that make it difficult for us to get to the truth, then we will use every legal argument that we have to make sure that we will find what happened, find out the truth, have an investigation that's thorough, and then, if appropriate, seek accountability under Minnesota law. And I think, as people talked about, we have a sovereign right in this state to enforce our own laws. So thank you very much.
Do you have enough authority under state law? Because lawmakers are working right now to rewrite state law to give you the authority, because they were saying there isn't enough accountability in current law to go after the public.
I think that there's more than enough law to go. I mean, in terms of what we need to do, I think the difficulty right now is more about fact gathering, in terms of making sure that we have that cooperation, or if we don't have that cooperation, then what happens is that we will be litigating, and it will be up to a judge. I don't think it would be any different, other than the fact that I think we have a federal administration that is trying to obstruct the fact-finding.
Do you have the identities of any of the agents who were present in the incident that day? I see in the photos that some of them are unmasked. And I'm wondering if you could address whether you may join the effort underway by the Attorney General and Mary Moriarty's office to bring suit in federal court in D.C. to compel the government to share information.
I'll let you answer the second part. We do not have the identity of the agents. We have asked for their identity. We tracked the license plates of the cars that were there at the scene, and we determined shortly thereafter that the license plates had been placed on different vehicles. So that made it more difficult for us to ascertain who was driving the cars on that day and time. We did attempt to actually locate those cars shortly thereafter, but once the plates were changed, that became a much more difficult operation.
Is it a violation of the law in and of itself?
I would think so.
Well, I think
Well,
there's
you want to hear the second part?
Dennis, there was a second part of the question, which I think is an important one, too. So as we talked about the TUI demand letter, that is a first step to commencing a civil lawsuit. So an option could be that we could join in the efforts that are happening right now in D.C. as a part of the good work of our county attorney and state attorney general and our BCA, who are plaintiffs in that lawsuit. So there's one avenue where we could join in that particular lawsuit. But in order to do that, we, with regard to this investigation, the TUI demand letter is a critical first step. We could also separately sue the federal government for this information in federal court, whether that's here or in D.C. And another avenue would be the convening of a Ramsey County grand jury to seek the truth, to subpoena this information, and then it would be up to the federal government to sue us, to stop us from what we are trying to do, which is very simply to represent the public interest, to seek the truth, and to uphold Minnesota law.
Esme and then Louis.
Yeah, I just had a question. At the time, it was reported that these agents were looking for a sex offender. They had a specific name of the person, and that sex offender was already in jail or prison. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is correct.
Yes.
Is there anything more you can share about the other cases you mentioned that are open? And I guess this also, have you heard from Mr. Tao that you can share anything?
We have been in contact with Mr. Tao, and we wouldn't be moving forward if he was not comfortable with us moving forward. I think he's in a place where he is an American citizen, which gives him, I think, more protections in terms of a fear of retaliation or things of that matter. And with regard to the other investigations, as appropriate, when we get to that time when we need to do something like this to inform the public about just basically what is happening and a call out for further information and I think, asking for publicly, to using the power of this podium, to request that information when that time is appropriate. Well, we will do those for those other cases, but like I said, there are 2 active investigations. The Sheriff's Office has the one involving Scott Tao. There's a second investigation that is being conducted by the St. Paul Police Department. There is a CN on that, and there has been reporting in that particular case. I don't want to go into the details, but with regard to the active ones, we will do everything that we need to continue to advance these things forward. And then on the 3 preliminary investigations, we're continuing to support the victims and the witnesses in that case, and we are working with them. And when they get to a place, maybe when at a later time, potentially they'll want us to move forward with regard to those allegations as well, to seek the truth and to have some aspect or ability to make a decision about accountability.
So which one of you met with ICE, and can you characterize that meeting or those discussions with whoever, and who was it at ICE that you met with, if you could say?
Josh Adams, our lead inspector, met with ICE. I have, well, I'll come to the microphone, but I'm not going to bring Josh up here. I think it would be unfair to characterize those conversations, but this is our lead investigator, Josh Adams. We do meet with them at the monthly Sheriff's Association meetings. ICE usually has their representatives there. Now, the local ICE representatives are different than the people that were brought in, Bavino, Holman. So we meet with the regular local people on a monthly basis at the sheriff's meeting.
So it's safe to say you didn't get very far in those conversations?
No, and I'm going to leave you with this letter. We didn't bring enough copies, but basically it was a February request. But I think the resounding thing that we hear from people we meet with is they do not have the authority to respond to our request.
The local folks.
The local folks. They do not have the authority to respond because that comes from Washington, D.C.
Do you have any more detail on what exactly happened that led up to these photographs with their alarms? I was not given a chance to close on.
Yeah. Well, we haven't been able to identify a warrant. They certainly haven't given us indication that they had a warrant. There was no indication to the family at the time that there was a warrant. So we do not believe there was a warrant. However, the reports that we were requesting would be beneficial to make that determination, as well as to what the ICE officers were thinking. You know, who were you looking for? Once you determined it wasn't the person that you were looking for, why did you continue to take him out of the house? Why did you make a decision to not let the party get dressed, put some shoes on, be cold weather? And what was your thinking? And then what did you interrogate him on regarding the hour plus that you were gone? All those facts we don't know. We've talked to the victim extensively, but we don't know what the ICE agents are saying about this encounter.
Are you saying that they identified, they realized inside the house that this was not the guy they were looking for, and they still brought it out?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Well, here's what I'm saying. I've looked at the photographs of the person or persons they've later said they were looking for. No resemblance. Outside of the fact that they're Asian, no resemblance. But more importantly, we have the technology nowadays to do fingerprint recognition. It's not everybody uses it on a regular basis, and ICE has been using facial recognition for quite some time. So they had numerous ways to identify the individual there before they brought him out of the house.
You don't know if it was picking this house and Mr. Tao because of visual resemblance or name or...
Well, I'm sure there's some type of address reference to the past. I mean, that would be an investigative tool, but you need more than that to get a warrant to go into a house. And of course, once you're in the house, and I've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times in my 47-year career, when you're going into a house, you verify who is in there. It is possible. We don't know. Maybe they wanted to leave the area because the neighbors were growing in numbers outside the house. That's not a reason to take someone out of their home because you're worried about the response from the citizen.
I think that that's a part of legal strategy and a part of the investigation that we need to cross that bridge when it comes. But having a TUI demand letter with a certain date is a critical thing that it helps and bolsters your arguments, whether we're going to be sued because we convened a grand jury. I mean, I just assume that that would be the response, that they would want to quash the subpoenas that we would have. Or if we were going to sue the federal government, whether by intervention in the federal lawsuit that already exists in Washington, D.C., or through our own lawsuit, that's just a critical step. So I don't mean to be evasive, but I just think that that is something that belongs to within the confines of the investigation. And I just want the public to trust that we will do everything that we can legally and explore all of those various options. This is novel territory, but like I said, the people up here, we're not going to let it go because we owe it to the people of our community and our state to seek the truth, to gather those facts, and if people are in our way, then we need to figure out ways to get someone to order that they are in our way and they need to step aside or cooperate. And so we'll do what justice requires.
We've got time for 2 more. Oh, we got time for more than that.
Yeah.
You know, we got plenty of time.
I think Bob's having a good time.
No. I just want to say that the issue you raised, Tim, the BCA has had trouble getting information since the very beginning. I mean, you all were here for the last 6 months, getting access to the scene, access to the cars involved. I mean, Drew Evans is one of the most professional law enforcement people I have worked with in my career. He's an outstanding, objective superintendent. He has tried, I've talked to him weekly, maybe daily during the height of this, and the frustration that they have in not getting access to the information is very similar to what John has articulated here. This isn't, you know, I don't know if rocket science is the right word with Artemis 2, but this is very simple, common sense law enforcement. Share your information with other agencies so they can make a determination if there's a violation of the law.
And with the change now at the top leadership at DHS, have you seen any changes in responses or what you're getting from senior leadership?
I think it's a little early for that. I will say that I sense they're more willing to take a second look at some of these questions. And of course, you saw the recent release of the video regarding the third incident in Minneapolis. Of course, there's the good pretty issues, but then the third one where the alleged shovel was used on an individual, which turned out to be a bold-faced lie. So I think there is a recognition that, okay, it's time to revisit. What do we have? Did we cross a line? But, I mean, John and I are hoping to meet with the U.S. Attorney and have this conversation.
Eric, I want to give you a chance.
Give us some context real quick while you're up there?
I was afraid you were going to ask for that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned your 47-year career.
Yeah.
You know politics, you know law enforcement. Give us context of you had to do anything like this before?
No.
What does that tell you?
I take this job very seriously. The job of law enforcement, it's a public trust. And we're always trying to keep the trust and the faith of the citizenry that we serve. There was some damage done to our reputations as law enforcement on the front of this. It's no secret that I even went to the legislature and asked them to make only licensed law enforcement officers in Minnesota be able to wear police, because most federal agencies wear FBI, DEA, ATF. This is the only other federal agency that wears police. But that wasn't going to pass a split legislative season. But we build trust, and obviously we lost a ton after George Floyd's murder, and we've been working the last 5 years to build that back. Thankfully, I think majority of the citizenry recognizes that we're not ICE. It took us a while to get there, but through the actions of ICE, they finally realized, hey, the police officers in Minnesota are not ICE. So I feel a little better about that. But regarding tactics, I've never seen tactics like we're employed here in my 47 years. It's all about professionalism. How your professionalism in Minnesota has been professional since 1978 when it adopted the post requirements. And we pride ourselves on professionalism. But this was to be expected. When you rush to hire thousands of agents and you give them 5 weeks of training, this was to be expected. The fact that they would not have the professionalized training that we do here. We require a 2-year degree of our officers with 1 year of skills training and another year of probation. It takes really solid 4 years for a police officer to represent the citizens of Minnesota. 5 weeks is all the agents working for ICE got. So this was all predictable. We don't. We don't have the reports, so we don't know what they knew. That's why we want the reports, because then how can make an intelligent decision about whether their actions were within the framework of what they do or outside.
In all your years as Sheriff Fletcher, is this frustrating beyond all belief, not getting those answers back after all these?
Well, I don't, at this point, partly my years, partly my age, I don't get frustrated because I've pretty much seen it all. I get more frustrated that we couldn't find Cassie Hansen's murderer the night she was murdered at Jehovah Lutheran Church, and I've seen a lot of death. But on our side of the river, there's minor frustration. On the Minneapolis side of the river, I would say major frustration by the law enforcement officers over there trying to get the facts as to what happened over there.
Can you give us some background on how unusual a TUI demand is? Is this something you typically do when an investigation involves the feds, or is this something you only have to do?
Well, I've been in this role since 2011, and before that I was St. Paul City Attorney. It's the first time my office has ever had to issue a TUI demand letter. And it shouldn't be that way. And as the sheriff talked about, there's just customs and practices of how we do things, and the base of that is through cooperation. And right now that's not happening, and in fact I would say that there's interference happening.
And when you're talking about the Ramsey County grand jury, that would be an investigatory grand jury, correct?
Correct. The grand jury has subpoena power, investigatory power, and so they could be convened, certainly to subpoena people, documents, to testify and bring certain things forward that the grand jury is demanding. And so I would imagine if a federal agent received a subpoena, the first thing that they would do is they would give that to their attorneys. And typically what usually happens is they will try to work it out with us, or they will try to quash that subpoena or remove the entire matter to federal court. We're in novel territory. We don't really know what will happen, but I'm just speculating about probably what happens. So that is one avenue. But there are other avenues as well, one of which is what the state of Minnesota, Hennepin County, and the BCA are doing with regard to commencing a lawsuit. Now think about this. In Washington, D.C. I mean, that is pretty unprecedented in and of itself.
Could you get a federal judge to convene a federal investigatory grand jury?
No, I think the U.S. Attorney's Office would have to start that process. But that is an avenue for fact-finding in the federal system. The federal system will use, for any type of criminal charges, they will use the federal grand jury system process, and that would require them to convene grand jurors and then through that process do the investigation, seek out the information, and then make ultimately a decision. They do their charges by indictment, where in state court the custom and practice is typically by complaint. However, we can use the grand jury to also indict in the state system as well.
Can you talk about what some extra challenges there might be if the victim is not a U.S. citizen?
Well, here's some of the things that we've learned. I mean, obviously there's a fear of retaliation, and it's real. It's real. I mean, first of all, something really traumatic has happened to you. And then at the same time, the belief, I think, where victims are going to be at is that, like, if I do come forward and I am going to participate in this investigation, my name will become public, and there could be further retaliation of me or somebody within my family or somebody that I love. And so that fear is real for the people that I think have experienced some of the things that we're talking about today. But my hope is that they do come forward, trust that we will have a victim-centered approach, trust that we will connect them to resources in our community, one of which would be having their own independent civil attorneys to help counsel and guide them through this process, and then make certain determinations. Because I think in certain instances, there actually could be more protections for victims that come forward through a criminal investigative process. I would want a private attorney to explain that to them. So that's the part that I think is still we're working on. And again, we're not going to move forward unless the victim wants us to, because we want to meet them where they are.
You mentioned you wanted a meeting with Daniel Rosen, the U.S. Attorney. Have you asked for one and gotten one?
I have had a meeting with U.S. Attorney Dan Rosen, and we've talked about some of these issues. We also talked about collaborating on a number of other things outside of all of this. And we're working on right now setting up a meeting with him, with Sheriff Fletcher and Chief Henry, to talk about some of these issues.
Can you share how Mr. Tao and his family are doing? Obviously, he's a U.S. citizen, but that doesn't take away from maybe the pressures of coming forward with something like this.
I don't want to go into the details about that, other than to say that he is willing to participate in the investigation actively, as well as the prosecution, and he understands that would require him to possibly testify under oath. But he's willing to do that. But I think he's in a different situation than some of the other folks that we have been in contact with. And I also want to thank just the many community volunteers and the lawyers who have volunteered or who are providing services from an immigration perspective and a civil perspective. That is so important. I think you just recently read about Judge Bryan having a decision in a case involving the officer that was involved with Renee Good's death. But through that, and some of the good work that's happening at the civil level on a prior situation involving a case in Bloomington, some of that information could possibly be coming out.
We good? Thank you for coming. Appreciate your interest in the issue. Let me take those letters here.
Yeah.
Josh, you want to see who wants a ice letter?
Okay, that concludes the press conference in St. Paul, Minnesota, involving charges that have been brought against federal officials due to the methods in the immigration raids that we saw earlier this year in Minnesota. Okay, back here in the studio, let's do it's 2:09 p.m. on this Monday as we move along through our stream. We're going to take a commercial break. When we get back, there's plenty more to discuss. We want to thank everyone for joining us on this Monday. Some major headlines when we get back from commercial. Okay, back here on Live Impact News to continue with our coverage. Let's go over some back and forth that we saw on social media involving President Donald Trump and Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. We're going to begin with a tweet or a Truth Social post, I suppose, that President Trump directed at Governor Spanberger. Let's read through at least the beginning of this. It's a lengthy post here, but we will read through some of this first part here. Heading to Virginia for meetings at Trump National, I can't believe what this new governor, Spanberger, has done to the Commonwealth. So sad. She is adding so many taxes, a food and beverage tax, digital services tax, utilities tax, and more. It has lost its energy, vitality, and strength. People are leaving that would never have even thought of doing so. New companies that signed to come into the Commonwealth under Governor Youngkin are now looking for ways to get out, break their deal. Of course, Governor Youngkin, the governor before Abigail Spanberger, Governor Youngkin was very much aligned with Trump on a number of different policies. Abigail Spanberger now called out by name by the president. She has been signing bills into law. There's actually a midnight deadline tonight for her to sign any other bills into law or decline to sign any other bills to law that she so chooses. Now, Governor Spanberger did respond to President Trump with a tweet on X. Let's go ahead to Governor Abigail Spanberger's response to the president. Again, we'll read through some of this. It's quite lengthy. It begins, "The president lied about me today on social media. While he tries to distract from the soaring gas prices and economic worry he has caused, here's what we are doing in Virginia. I've signed dozens of bipartisan bills into law to address high housing, healthcare, and energy costs, and not the taxes the president and his allies are lying about. To name a few, stopping predatory middlemen from driving up the cost of prescription drugs, incentivizing the construction of housing Virginians can actually afford, protecting families from covering the cost of energy infrastructure improvements, letting localities adopt affordable housing programs, so on and so forth." She names a few more bills that she has signed. She concludes by saying, "I've signed bills to accelerate $7.1 billion in capital investment projects that will bring more than 3,250 jobs to our Commonwealth." And she continues on from there. Instead of offering solutions to the problem, he is both creating and actively making worse the president's scapegoats. So, Abigail Spanberger responding to President Donald Trump, who called her out by name on social media. And again, tomorrow we'll have a lot more reporting on the bills that she does end up signing or not signing into law, as there is a deadline of midnight tonight to decide on those bills that are on her desk as we speak. Now, Abigail Spanberger was not the only person that President Trump addressed by name on his social media over the weekend. Pope Leo, the first ever American pope, also receiving the ire of the president. Let's go through again a portion of this tweet. This Truth social media post. "Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. He talks about fear of the Trump administration, but doesn't mention the fear that the Catholic Church and all other Christian organizations had during COVID when they were arresting priests, ministers, and everybody else for holding church services, even when going outside and being 10 and even 20 feet apart. I like his brother Louis much better than I like him because Louis is all MAGA. He gets it and Leo doesn't." Again, Leo being the Pope. I don't want a Pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want a Pope who thinks it's terrible that America attacked Venezuela, a country that was sending massive amounts of drugs into the United States, and even worse, emptying their prisons, including murderers, drug dealers, and killers into our country. I don't want a Pope who criticizes the President of the United States, because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide to do. So it carries on from there, from the president for quite some time. And that is, again, directed at the Pope, Pope Leo, receiving this message on a public forum from President Donald Trump. Pope Leo responded as well. I believe we have the Pope's response, as you see on the right side of your screen, the Pope meeting with patrons. And I do believe, Naya, am I mistaken? We have the Pope response as well? No. Okay, that is something that we will look to get for you, because we do know that there was a response from Pope Leo after the social media posts from President Donald Trump. So If you'll bear with me for just a moment now, I actually have this pulled up for us right here, and I can read the quotes to you. This is a response from Pope Leo on Monday to the criticism from the president, telling reporters while traveling to Algeria that he, quote, "I have no fear of the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. That's what I believe in. I am called to do what the church is called to do." On Saturday, the Pope had called for an end to conflict without explicitly mentioning the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. Quote, "Enough of war," Leo said during a peace vigil in St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. The Pope also suggested delusion of omnipotence is fueling the U.S.-Israel war in Iran, imploring the country leaders to come to a peace agreement. That, on Saturday, prompted Trump's post on Sunday. Trump's post on Sunday, again, responded to by the Pope with, "I have no fear of the Trump administration, nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel." So a back and forth between Pope Leo and President Donald Trump, some via quotes, some via social media, but nonetheless, a back and forth there between those two individuals. And now we actually have a live event happening right now, a Vatican diplomacy briefing that we are going to actually take a listen into live if we can, which I do believe that we can. There has been a little bit of back and forth on this live feed. It does look like Nia Campbell has it pulled up for us. So let's listen in live to what has been labeled a Vatican diplomacy briefing right now.
Never more war. War never again during the Vietnam era. The Pope's critique of war in Iran and bombing in Lebanon should not be understood as a political stand. Rather, it is a theological position grounded in what is called the just war, developed by no other than St. Augustine in the early 5th century and studied in all United States military academies. It says, a just war must be defensive and protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. If it is unprovoked, kills innocents and destroys civilian homes, it can be classified as unjust and immoral. Thank you very much for the opportunity of making this presentation.
Thank you, Victor. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Alexander. Thanks to the Commission for your invitation to be here. Thanks also to Fleur Cowan, my old colleague from the diplomatic service. And it's a great honor to be here on this panel. Also, my students back at Boston College have read Victor's book and gotten a lot out of it, and I worked with Avsi back in the day when I was at the Vatican, so thanks for assembling this group. I'm going to speak a little bit about my perspective from being a diplomat at the Vatican and explore the topic in that way. So an assignment for U.S. Foreign Service officers, an assignment to the Embassy to the Holy See is a highly coveted posting. And while a few diplomats would complain about living in Rome, the attraction of the assignment is the exceptional diplomatic opportunity it presents. While most bilateral missions focus at least in part on the host country's internal politics, the U.S. Holy See diplomatic relationship is almost entirely focused on third countries. Further, because the Holy See, like the United States, has interest in every corner of the world, a U.S. diplomat at the Vatican may be engaged with counterparts on issues in Latin America one day, South Asia the next, maybe Eastern Europe after that. It's an exciting portfolio that mirrors the global network of the Holy See, including its strength in the dynamic global South. Working with the Holy See is also what a former ambassador of mine called pure diplomacy. We aren't trying to sell the Vatican anything. We don't spend time on visa issues. There are no military agreements to be had. Instead, it's high-level engagement on global, regional, and national issues related to war and peace, human dignity, and the future of our planet. Another attraction of Embassy Vatican for Foreign Service officers is the opportunity to work with the Holy See Diplomatic Corps that Victor spoke of a moment ago. As he mentioned, it's the oldest diplomatic corps in the world. I found them to be some of the most effective diplomats I ever worked with in my entire Foreign Service career. Vatican City is a place where the world convenes. The network of dioceses, religious orders, and other Catholic entities, I think Victor and Alexander both mentioned, it's an extensive network. And the flow of people and information to Rome is constant. At one point during my tenure at Embassy Vatican, for example, there was a violent crisis in Haiti. Most foreign diplomats in Port-au-Prince, including the Americans, weren't able to get out into the field to report on what was happening, the most recent developments. My diplomatic counterpart at the Vatican, however, he knew from Catholic sources in Haiti on the ground exactly what was happening. In Vatican City, while diplomats work with various Holy See offices, our primary interlocutor is the Holy See's Ministry of Foreign Affairs equivalent, MFA equivalent. But the diplomatic environment in Rome is much broader than that. It's a function of that convening power of the Holy See. Diplomats working on an issue with Vatican counterparts would be wise to consult with colleagues from the International Diplomatic Corps accredited to the Holy See. As Victor mentions, the Vatican maintains relations with over 180 countries, and many of those have resident ambassadors in Rome. So many times we would go and speak to them about various issues we were working on. Other important resources are the many religious orders that have established their international headquarters close to Vatican City. And it's not just because I work at Boston College, but I would also, back in the day, we would consult a lot with the Jesuits and other religious orders on various issues that would come up. Finally, influential Catholic lay organizations, most notably the Rome-based community of Sant'Egidio, are an important part of the diplomatic environment. In recent years, U.S. diplomats have been a part of talks hosted by Sant'Egidio in Rome to bring an end to conflicts in Senegal, South Sudan, and elsewhere. So a major storyline of the pontificate of Pope Leo XIV is how he will balance his identity as an American with his duties as pontiff, especially given the current events that Alexander went over. It's worth noting, though, that Holy See diplomats have always had to negotiate these challenges, since its diplomats come from many countries around the world. Working at the Vatican, I could be sitting across the table from a French-born Monsignor one day, an Argentine bishop the next, a Filipino after that. But when these diplomats join the service of the Holy See, they become representatives of the Vatican first and foremost. And again, interchanging Holy See and the Vatican, although, as Victor notes, technically different terms we're talking about. This also goes for the American representatives of the Holy See as well. When I was stationed at the Vatican, I had a good friend who was an American Holy See diplomat. I had met him over there, and he would sometimes come over to our house to watch U.S. sports with us on Armed Forces TV. But when we had diplomatic dealings back in his office in the Apostolic Palace, there was no doubt whose interests he was promoting. Certainly any diplomat, official or pope, is also a product of his or her background. Visvaldas Kulbokas, the courageous papal nuncio currently in Kyiv, for some years was the point person for Russia and Ukraine in the Holy See MFA equivalent. Hailing from Lithuania, he certainly had a different understanding of the Russian threat to Ukraine and the region than others might have had. But I would say his background enriched his service rather than created any awkward entanglements. Returning to Pope Leo, the question isn't whether his American background will create a conflict of interest, but rather how his innate understanding of American culture and its political system will influence his engagement on U.S. and world issues. In the bigger picture, it's important to realize, as I think Victor and Alexander both got at, that while the Vatican is part of the geopolitical landscape and its diplomacy, its real focus is promoting the core principles of human dignity rather than a political agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. With that, we'll go over to Jackie.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today on this important topic. My name is Jackie Aldrete, and for the last 20 years, I have had the honor of working for AFSI Foundation. I currently serve as Deputy Secretary General for U.S. Relations. AFSI Foundation is a nonprofit, lay civil society organization that supports around 300 development and humanitarian aid projects in 41 countries around the globe, both directly and through partnerships with local organizations. Each year, these initiatives touch the lives of around 4 million people. Our vision is a world where the value and dignity of each and every person is recognized, respected, and supported, a world in which each person can be the protagonist of their own life and that of their community. We respond to real needs, above all education, economic opportunity, agricultural and rural development, and the environment. Over the past 50+ years, AFSI has worked directly with people in need, and in doing so has experienced the influence of the Holy See on the ground as a steady presence alongside the people, a voice for the voiceless. AFSI is one of the many charitable organizations that relates to the church as a matter of personal conviction. Our history is interwoven with the church, and Catholic social teachings have guided our work over the years. Today, AFSI maintains an open dialogue with Vatican institutions, and in particular, the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development and the Dicastery for Culture and Education. When it comes to our work in local communities, our deep relationships with representatives of the Vatican, the Apostolic Nuncios, and the leaders of the local church are among our most treasured resource. The steady, politically neutral presence of the nuncio in contexts of instability and turmoil provides humanitarian actors like AFSI with reassurance and support as we remain shoulder to shoulder with the local community and our dedicated staff. The Holy See is also a custodian of a rich set of teachings on social issues, referred to collectively as Catholic social teachings. The core principles of solidarity, subsidiarity, and the preferential option for the poor are pillars of the AFSI method. And what is fascinating about this group of teachings is that they are constantly evolving, in dialogue, you could say, with the dynamic changes in our society, economy, and global order. So as we as an organization strive to live out these principles in the real world and in the face of challenging circumstances, we also contribute back and nourish the understanding of what these principles mean in practice and in today's world. To illustrate some of my points, let's consider Syria, a country that has experienced brutal dictatorship, civil war, and a population at the mercy of geopolitical striving from all sides. The presence of the Holy See through it all, largely in the person of Cardinal Mario Zanari, Apostolic Nuncio, is a testament to the themes already mentioned. In 2015, Syria was in the early phase of the latest civil war, and moved by the unfolding health crisis that he saw around him, Cardinal Zanari reached out to AFSI and asked us to support the Catholic hospitals there. We responded by launching the Open Hospitals Project. Our shared goal was to ensure free access to medical care for the Syrians most in need, and 3 Catholic hospitals, managed by various religious congregations, were kept open throughout the war, receiving all patients, regardless of religion and the ability to pay. The project continues today with strong hospitals and now expanded outreach clinics and pharmacies, bringing health services closer to the people in need. This partnership highlights several dimensions of the Holy See's role in the world from our perspective. First, the Church is present even in the most remote villages of the world, giving voice to the voiceless and close to the lives of everyday people. Secondly, the Holy See is consistently advocating for an integral vision of the person who needs not only food and a roof over his head, but also work, and importantly, peace, rights, and freedom. Third, the Holy See holds steady and will not forget crisis situations, even when they no longer dominate the headlines. Now, on a more personal note, As an American, I'm proud that I could work for the past 20 years for AFSI, inspired by Catholic social teachings, to create concrete opportunities for disadvantaged families, enabling them to educate their children, find dignified work, manage disease, and face all of the challenges of life, doing so in partnership with my government, the United States government. AFSI's work at this nexus, where the spirit of the Holy See and the commitment of the United States to upholding human dignity have converged, has delivered important results. We look forward to a return to such collaboration. Like the Holy See, AFSI will never give up this mission to defend and support human dignity wherever it is threatened by extreme poverty, lack of opportunity in basic services, lack of protection and safety, and inhumane treatment, standing by our conviction that every human life has the same inherent value, regardless of his or her circumstances. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. I will go ahead and ask our first question here just to kick things off, and then we will open the podium up to you guys. And I think the way that we'll go about doing this is just that you can raise your hands and I'll recognize you. You can walk up there and ask your question to any or all of the panelists. But to ask my question, in After Virtue, Alistair MacIntyre offered what he called the disquieting suggestion about modernity, that we possess simulacra of morality, that we continue to use the key expressions, dignity, rights, justice, truth, but have lost the context from which their significance is derived. We have the words, but no longer know what they mean. If MacIntyre is right, even partly, I would ask, what does that imply for the Holy See, which still enters the room insisting that these words refer to something real, that truth exists, that dignity is given, that they make demands on us whether we recognize them or not? Is the Church speaking to a world that disagrees with it, or one that has lost the capacity to understand what it's saying? I'll pitch that out to anybody who wants to take it, or we can leave it on the floor and maybe return later.
I'll probably say very straightforward that the doctrine of the Church is rooted in the natural law. And the natural law is an expression of the Aristotle's understanding and philosophy, which precedes Christianity by some 2,500 years. So the practice of the quest to reach the values which are expressed through the doctrine of the Catholic Church: social justice, respect for the dignity, secure conditions, decent conditions of living, expressed throughout so many encyclicals of the different popes. It all goes back to the natural law. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so interesting to hear officials at the Vatican speaking on diplomacy there, especially early on in that live look-in at that press conference where they were talking very specifically about modern current events, things happening right now. Now, speaking of right now, we're going to go to a brief commercial break. We've got another live event that we want to check in on when we get back. Stay tuned for that after this quick commercial break. Okay, back here on Live Impact News, where we're actually going to go out to another live event. This is a Semaphore World Economy 2026 conference right now. There's a panel speaking on building intelligent enterprises. We want to listen in and just get more of a sense of what they're talking about, see if they're talking about economics in a way that could pertain to us here in Hampton Roads or the United States, while the economy sits in a place where it closely is following the actions of the war in Iran. It's been up and down in terms of oil prices, gas prices, and the stock market. So we're going to listen into this conference. We're going to see if we can get any sort of information that could help speak to the impacts of the global economy that come all the way back to local. Let's listen in for now, and we'll be back here on Live Impact News if it goes in a direction that doesn't impact us too much here. But first, a brief listen.
The minister and also with Qatar LNG, and just committing our confidence and our team to be there as we go through also the new projects that are going to develop going forward.
And that work hasn't slowed down at all because of
No,
the
it hasn't. And obviously the EPC contractors are there as well. And safety is a prime concern, and we put that always at the forefront. But also they're continuing to move forward. And as they look at it, you know, these are long-term projects. We're looking at 20 years out. And we're also looking at the diversification across all of the LNG plays globally. And I think that's what we'll see now. This fear of an oversupply, which we viewed as overstated anyhow, is really not there. And you're going to see other FIDs happen here in the US as well as Argentina, other locations much faster.
So a lot of work for Baker Hughes ahead, definitely, at fulfilling all of that.
Yes, and we're obviously happy to partake in that and provide the liquefaction trade.
Yeah. Bob, can you say a little bit, you know, we've seen not just Ras Laffan, but just, you know, if you look at Iran, Ukraine, there's so many examples recently where energy infrastructure has been targeted, kind of getting wrapped up in these conflicts. You know, as a company that builds infrastructure, how do you sort of think about what it takes to build these facilities in a more hardy way, to think about defense, you know, kind of protecting energy infrastructure as it becomes kind of more wrapped up into wars around the world?
Yep, Tim, also thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Before, I'd probably kind of separate the answer into two parts. Before speaking those two parts, just to continue on with what Lorenzo said, first and foremost, the safety and well-being of our people that are there. We have several thousand people there as well, has been first and foremost on our minds. And interestingly enough, on that, unfortunately, we learned a lot during the pandemic from an engineering standpoint of how to work from home and the services industry working from home. We probably underestimated the mental health effect that this time around has really affected, because not only is it you know, working from home and all of those types of encumbrances, but also what's happening in and around people's homes in places like Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in areas that may not, you know, be familiar with those types of circumstances. Mm-hmm. On the kind of the resilience, I'd say there's two main parts. One is that thinking about the infrastructure needs from society outward, right? And so, and a little bit of experience of this was when I was in the service as well, is when we would go in and rebuild either war-ravaged or even conflict-ravaged areas of the world, or natural disasters. We would think about it from the perspective of what does the human need in order to go back to some form of life. So things like electricity, clean water, transportation network, starting from that and working outward.
Right. So that's kind of the approach. This is your work with the Seabees.
With the Seabees in the Navy. Today, moving forward, it's those threats that we probably didn't think about as much as we did back 20, 30 years ago, around redundancy and resiliency, as well as cyber protection as well. And that just doesn't apply to the Middle East, that applies to facilities all over the world today. So a little bit of a different, still starting with the human first, but now thinking about all of those unanticipated ramifications
and maybe
of
having a sort of premium on redundancy, or maybe that changes in some way the way you think about capital allocation. You need to kind of have a little bit more than maybe you would have thought you needed in the past.
Absolutely, especially in water infrastructure.
That
concept of redundancy.
What's different about water infrastructure there?
Clean drinking water facilities, water treatment facilities, if they're unfortunately hit, you could wipe out societies,
right?
As we know it.
That seems like maybe a little bit of a blind spot that we need to be more cognizant of. Would you
Very
say?
much so, also because of contamination reasons too. So those
okay.
things are being just not in the Middle East, or that's across the world.
Lorenzo, can you expand a little bit on the, you were speaking about Qatar Energy's plans for LNG expansion. When you look at the global LNG picture, I mean, one thing we've seen from this current conflict is the risk that stems from having this choke point in the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that the conflict kind of strengthens the case for more LNG investment, or does it actually sort of weaken it in the sense of we have these few choke points and maybe there's an increased vulnerability there? How do you view that kind of risk calculation?
I think it actually strengthens very much the adage of energy diversification.
H&R Block makes it easy to reserve time for your taxes. Tap us in, find a time that works for you.
Okay, so you heard there during that conference speaking very specifically about the war in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the impacts those things have had on the economy. It sounds like they're saying LNG, which oftentimes stands for liquefied natural gas, so they are talking about that energy industry that has been in crisis. So this World Economy Summit relating directly back to all of the things that we are discussing day in and day out that are impacting consumers here in Hampton Roads. Interesting to hear on a global scale the same issues that are trickling down and having people pay a little bit more or a lot of it more at the pump in some instances. Diesel fuel being impacted, which affects supply chains and could affect package deliveries, could affect travel, could affect jet fuel. I mean, the situation in the energy sector right now with regards to the stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz, creating a situation where 20% of the world's oil typically passes through that strait, and now that is not happening on even remotely close to that large of a scale, is again one of the top economic subjects that is being discussed by experts all the way down to people who are pulling into gas stations on a regular basis. Now, after negotiations broke down, negotiations with Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and a cohort going to negotiate with diplomats from Iran for a permanent solution to this war. When that negotiation did not result in a successful resolution agreed upon by all parties, we once again saw oil prices jump. We also had the announcement by the United States of a blockade of all Iranian ports, a blockade that the president said started at 10 a.m. Eastern time today. The combination of these events over the weekend have led to gas jumping back up. Remember, last week after that ceasefire, we were able to report that gas prices had come down. They have jumped back up to over $100 a barrel, both in terms of the metrics we use to measure here in the United States and the go-to metrics that we use globally. So those gas prices back up, and we know the trickle effect that could have on the rest of the economy and does have on the rest of the economy. So let's once again go back out to that conference and listen and see if we can get more insight and more answers into these economic impacts that we are all feeling, all the way down to us here in Hampton Roads and North Carolina. Let's take a listen.
You look at the oscillation that happens in pricing when these impacts occur. There are some people that are making a lot of money right now because they can sell on spot. And you're going to see that come through also by having more affordable and sustainable. And I think that's what will actually come into the forefront, because one thing that at least we believe is the demand for energy is unsustainable. It continues to grow. It just is a human nature that we like to consume energy. And if you look at generative AI, you look at the data centers that Bob is building, not just in the developed world, but in the developing world, we have a decade of energy demand. We've got to make it affordable, sustainable, and secure. And that's going to need also a robust infrastructure across multiple locations that we've potentially ignored in the past. And I look at Algeria, plentiful of gas. You look at Argentina, you look at the US. There's a lot that can be done to sustain that affordability and security.
Bob, even looking beyond energy, you think you were saying backstage that the Middle East is actually the fastest growing region for your business. Does that change now? Do you still see, do you see a kind of change in the ability of those countries to continue investing in the type of infrastructure that you build? How is that going to change your plans?
I think it's early. I think it's probably too early to speculate on what happens. We'll say this. There is ambitious plans around Saudi's Vision 2030, all that's going on in the Emirates right now. Does that get elongated a bit? Possibly, but it's also a society that has great ambition to be an integrated part of the world. And so I wouldn't count him out.
Wouldn't count him out. Yeah.
Tim, could I go back to something Lorenzo was saying?
Please do.
Yes. He was talking about it. It was a great kind of analogy. He was talking about it in the context of LNG and kind of even the hydrocarbon space even broadly. It's interesting. The same applies in non-human driven catastrophes that are having an effect on elements of the world that we need as humans. And the one that came to mind was water.
Yeah.
Right? If you look at the effects right now of climate and what's happening where, it's kind of two extremes. There's either water scarcity issues or, too much water, and we have flooding issues all over. Things like major metropolitan, caused by climate, major and aged infrastructure, major metropolitan areas in the US that in certain cases were 2 to 3 days away from clean drinking water as a result of fires and other natural disasters that have occurred. So that same kind of concept of what do we do around potable reuse and reclaim? How do we now take investment? And I love what you said, Lorenzo, about the financial markets. We'll figure it out, and invest that in elements that we, our children, our grandchildren are going to need for generations.
Right. Yeah. Let's expand a little bit, Bob, on your data center work. And, you guys are doing a lot there. Baker Hughes also, what was this number? You doubled your data center order forecast to $3 billion earlier this year, if I'm getting that right.
Yeah, I'm going to get an order from Bob, hopefully.
Yeah. So both companies doing a lot in this space. What do you think the energy industry is getting wrong at the moment, Bob, about what hyperscalers actually need? What do we need to do differently there?
Yeah. First of all, I don't know if the energy industry is doing anything wrong. So maybe another way of characterizing it is, I think there is, and we'll go to the hyperscalers, but also it's getting broader, right? There's now the neo-cloud providers, and there are now providers of compute space that compute loads that are increasing at a very, very rapid pace. Everyone's focused in on the energy requirements. There's an ecosystem of a supply network that brings these to bear. Of those, the electrical OEM space, I think the full consideration of if you put that much of a load on the entirety of the supply chain, there are going to be some choke points in those areas. And so looking at it holistically as a full, kind of a full multifaceted solution that takes a village to build. I think a little bit more attention on that, because now we're building, and then you kind of add on maybe some geopolitical uncertainty around that, and then you've got kind of like the ultimate state of entropy happening all at once. And so all of those things, and now I'm now going to applaud the supply chain, is that I think looking at it holistically now and saying, okay, how do we do this in a more programmatic way instead of, just going to West Texas and saying, okay, there's ubiquitous power here, that's where we're going to go. Well, now what's going on inside the data center is increasing. It's increasing the water needs. It's increasing the cooling needs. It's also increasing the complexity in the high bandwidth memory chips that are feeding it as well. So we're kind of looking at it holistically there from all perspectives.
Lorenzo, can you, from your point of view, you're looking at this kind of very rapidly growing order book related to data centers and AI. How do you scale up your manufacturing? What kind of conversations are you having with your suppliers upstream of you about how to prepare and respond to that kind of demand growth?
So I think you have to take a step back and say, where do we need to be in 10 years' time? Mm-hmm. And from a capacity perspective, really look at the end marketplace. And the end marketplace for us is power generation. And when you think about power generation off the grid, it's a theme that is going to be growing because the grid at this stage is unable to sustain the demand. And so distributed power generation is going to be key from a data center perspective, but then also from an industrial perspective, from an off-grid of large urban areas. And you're seeing this whole aspect of interconnectivity with different stakeholders, but reliant on oneself. And so a cluster of capabilities, and where we're looking to is what are the equipment and services we need to provide over the course of those 10 years to each of those end markets, not be dependent on any one, but classify it from a power generation perspective, and then work with the stakeholders and the ecosystem entirely. And we've doubled our production capacity relative to industrial gas turbines, not just because of data centers, but because we see pipelines and compression stations being necessary. We see industrial backup power being necessary, and that's the way we look at it. And I think you do have to take a step back and look at it more holistically. If you just go to any one end thing, you're bound to be wrong, because that end thing is going to move around, and it's a flavor of the month one day, and then it goes out of flavor.
So moving target.
Moving target. So you've got to pick the thematic aspects, and that's what we're trying to do within Baker Hughes from a technology, equipment, and service perspective.
Which for this type of equipment that we're talking about just seems like more is that's the mandate.
It really goes back to a fundamental theme that we're in an energy demand and an infrastructure build, and it's also natural if you think about it. It's been nearly 60 years since we really did anything to the infrastructure of the grid in the United States. And we've been looking at no real increase being required. Now you look at developing nations that still have to produce it. So I think it's a generational aspect that comes, and this is the opportunity during the next decade.
And there's not a risk of overcapacity or having, you don't see any kind of stranded asset risk or anything.
Look, there'll be some, at the end of the day, the markets will solve that. We pick the areas that we think are the winning areas over time. And again, it's the importance of having the right attributes. There will be, today there's some non-financially suitable solutions being given to data centers. I mean, if you have 200 1 megawatts or stuff, there's solutions that are available. Are they potentially the best reliable and sustainable for the future? I don't know. That's a question that has to be proven.
Can I comment just on one item on that? Because I do think this.
Okay, welcome back into the Live Impact News studio here, talking about a number of topics that we have reported on directly here in Hampton Roads as well. The impact of the war in Iran on the economy, and especially on oil markets and gas markets, the impact of data centers and their construction, and even talking about upgrades in infrastructure. So a lot of interesting stuff happening at that conference right now. Now, what we're actually going to do here on Live Impact News is we are going to wrap the show. We're going to go to commercial. But afterwards, we will actually still be in this studio for a special report on 13 News Now. So you can go to our linear channel and watch if you would like to. We will be there for a 13 News Now special report as we prepare for the press conference from Mayor Bobby Dyer and Police Chief Newdigate in Virginia Beach pertaining to the shooting that happened at the oceanfront over the weekend. So you do not have to turn that channel. We're going to end our Live Impact News stream, but we will still be here with that special report. For now, thanks for joining us on Live Impact News. We will be right back, however. Well, good afternoon and welcome to a 13 News Now special report. Well, good afternoon and welcome to a 13 News Now special report. I am Connor Reel and we come to you live this afternoon as we await a press conference in Virginia Beach that will feature, among others, Mayor Bobby Dyer and Police Chief Paul Newdigate. This press conference taking place in the wake of a shooting at the oceanfront over this weekend in which 8 people were shot. That press conference has actually just begun. We're going to go live to Virginia Beach right now.
A formal update regarding the tragic events that occurred this past Saturday, April 11th at the oceanfront. Our hearts remain with the victims and their families as they navigate this difficult time. Before we hear from our leadership, I would like to recognize the members of the Virginia Beach City Council who are present with us today to show their unified support for our community. As I call your name, please raise your hand. Mayor Robert M. Bobby Dyer, Vice Mayor Rosemary Wilson, Councilmember Michael Berlucci, District 3, Councilmember Dr. Amelia Ross Hammond, District 4, Councilmember Worth Remick, District 6, Councilmember Cal Cash Jackson Green, District 7, Councilmember Stacy Cummings Jr., District 8, and Councilmember Josh Schulman, District 9. I also want to thank our City Manager, Patrick Duhaney, for being present in a show of support. Thank you so much. I additionally want to thank those who are standing behind you, who are dignitaries, also city officials and members of service here with the City of Virginia Beach. I thank you for being present as a sign of support. I would now like to introduce Mayor Robert M. Bobby Dyer. Mayor Dyer will share his thoughts on behalf of City Council regarding our city's path forward and our unwavering commitment to public safety at the oceanfront.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. This is a serious conversation that is going to take place, and yes, we are in search of solutions. We live in a world, a nation, a commonwealth on fire. We live in a world where anger, hatred, violence, a callous disregard of life, and a disregard of laws has become the new norm in our country. We are a nation with multiple ills, many of which we do not have a cure for, but we have to find one for this situation. Back in the day, after my tenure in the Marine Corps, I became a physical therapist. I had the opportunity to work with thousands of people with multiple ailments. I met people at the worst time of their life. They had a stroke, they were in a car wreck, and regrettably also gunshot wounds, and people that were victims of violence. And there's always a common thread that we came to a conclusion to help people, that help the community. And that was, be honest, what is the problem? And I'm afraid in a lot of areas, people are afraid to talk about what the real problems are. But we have to do that. We have to do that as a community. And then we would ask the patient, what caused the problem? We got to be honest about that too, because that helps find the cure. And then also, as we go forward, we say, okay, what's the plan that we're going to use to address this problem? And what are the goals? And these are the things that we have to do, but a physical therapist cannot do it by themselves. They have to work at a team with physicians and other healthcare providers and with families and friends. And that's how you come to a favorable outcome. And that's what we have to do right here and now. Yes, we had a tragedy, and we must address it. While there was no loss of life during the terrible shooting activity that occurred at the Virginia Beach oceanfront this weekend, Our community is hurting with the continued violence. We sincerely hope for rapid healing and gentle recovery for those who experience bodily harm and injury. We share the community's frustration, and we will continue to do everything we can do as a city to enhance public safety, both reactive measures and new proactive measures. We have implemented enhanced safety protocols to include new curfew enforcement, advanced technology like ShotSpotter, and the Real-Time Crime Center, as well as increased presence at the oceanfront, with the goal of enabling our residents and guests to enjoy our beautiful community has to offer with peace of mind. The curfew was effective, reducing crowds and overall risk, but unfortunately, it was not enough to prevent the weekend shooting. The curfew does not impact those young adults over 18. And far too many of those young adults are making irresponsible choice to bring firearms to our oceanfront and put lives in danger. We have to get the message out, and we need the tools to do it, to let people know if you bring an illegal firearm to Virginia Beach, you risk being arrested and incarcerated. City gun violence is a citywide issue, a community issue, regional issue, state issue, and it is a national issue. And together we must find solutions to this epidemic that is gripping our nation. We've seen recent incidents in Washington, D.C., Richmond, Newport News, Hampton, where large crowds of teens and young adults have heightened public safety challenges. And I always say, violence knows no borders, or boundaries. We must work with our fellow mayors and council members, with our colleagues in the General Assembly, and with community leaders to address this ongoing challenge. In addition to maximizing every resource at our disposal and leveraging every authority we currently provided by the Commonwealth, over the coming months, we must continue to work with our General Assembly delegation to improve and develop legislation to enhance the tools that we so desperately need to confront this situation. We know we're not alone in this fight, and we have many fruitful conversations with colleagues from around the Commonwealth, and will continue to build a coalition of localities in making the request to the General Assembly. And yes, we may have to do some tough love, but tough love is meant to save lives. Virginia Beach is one of the safest large cities in the United States. Our priorities continue to be the safety of our residents and visitors, community well-being, maintaining a friendly family environment at our oceanfront and in our neighborhoods. That is the goal that we aspire. And I just want to thank the public safety team for their efforts. But the other thing is, what are we going to do right now? And that is the question that is lingering among the public, and rightfully so. Tomorrow we will be meeting, and we will be meeting in closed session with our city attorney to find out what tools are currently available to us and what are maybe some best practices from other cities that we can incorporate and use effectively. And I'm also going to make a recommendation, to our members of the delegation as we try to really build that strong bond and bridge together. May I suggest, do a ride-along. Go along and ride with a police officer, one of our brave men and women at the oceanfront, and see what they confront, with the type of crowds and the duties and responsibility. And I think that would be enlightening in promoting the type of conversation we need to get to the answers that we need. And the other thing is, I think what we have to do immediately is put together a task force of stakeholders, from all varieties of our city, to come together and really start working on solutions. We don't have the luxury of time, to wait a year to study a problem that is an immediate threat to our citizenry right now. So once again, the time is now for us to act. And we must act together. We must build the bridges that we need with the various entities that will put this together. It's a national problem. It's a local problem. So let's get together and get this taken care of. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Chief Newdigate. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, it seems like we were just in front of you not too long ago with the same set of circumstances. But before I get started, please let me introduce my team. Deputy Chief Scott Wichendall, Deputy Chief Billy Zelms, Deputy Chief Jeff Wilkerson. We've got Captain Michelle Wyatt, who oversees the Detective Bureau, Lieutenant Flynn, who oversees our Violent Crimes Unit, and our homicide detectives in the room, all supporting this effort. So we know Saturday night at 9:50 p.m. We had a shooting involving 8 individuals in the 1400 block of Atlantic. And first, let me start by thanking the Virginia Beach police officers and the sheriff's deputies that were out there. They responded quickly, rendered aid, identified witnesses, suspects, recovered guns, everything that made it very possible to make those quick arrests and get that information out to the community and the media yesterday afternoon as quick as we could. So we know that yesterday we took into custody, actually Saturday night into Sunday morning, Miss Jemiah Williams, a female 18 from Henrico, who has been charged with multiple counts of aggravated assault, firearm commission of a felony, reckless handling of a firearm with injury, as well as open warrants. And right before I came in here, I was advised that the firearm that we recovered from Miss Williams was also used in 2 incidents up near Richmond as part of our NIBIN program. So we need to figure out what that is, but there could be additional charges on what that looks like. We had warrants for an outstanding individual that was Mr. Isaiah Charity, an 18-year-old from Richmond. It gives me a great privilege to announce that Mr. Charity turned himself in on his open warrants approximately an hour and a half ago. So he is no longer wanted, and the second individual is in custody. We do have a third shooter that we are looking for. He is an unidentified male black. The Detective Bureau is working diligently to identify him, and when we do, and there's no doubt that we will bring the appropriate charges, and we will hold all 3 shooters responsible for what occurred Saturday night. We know our victims are from Chesterfield, Lancaster, Richmond, Georgia, and the only local individual was from Portsmouth. So once again, I thank you to the VBPD officers that are out there every weekend. Thank you to the team. Thank you to the sheriff's deputies that support us. Thank you to the EMS, the fire, everyone, all of our public safety team. But I'd like to kind of go back in time and kind of talk about, where we got there. So we were upstaffed this weekend, and we have been upstaffed since early March. And historically, that is not something that we have had to do as a police department. Usually our upstaffing comes mid-April, towards the end of April, historically around week 17. We have not had to pull officers from other commands and move them down to the ocean front this early, but based on some of the things that occurred last year, based on incidents that are occurring around the nation in regards to spring break, the executive team said it's imperative that we pool personnel and we move them down there. So the staffing configuration and the amount of officers that you saw down there this weekend and really since the beginning of March is not by accident, but I will tell you, it's not based on intelligence. It's really just based on the weather right now, because we are monitoring the intelligence, but we are not seeing dedicated posts that we have seen in the past indicating that a lot of folks are coming to the beach. So what we saw this Saturday, well, Friday was very uneventful. Saturday we had a crowd of about 1,000 individuals that were out there. And talking to DC Zelm Saturday night, what I will tell you is that's about half of what we traditionally expect on a very warm spring summer night. So questions about the curfew. and we hear them from the community. Well, is it effective? Why are we continuing with the curfew? What I will tell you is, historically, when we're dealing with 2,000 individuals walking up and down Atlantic, trying to break up those fights, disorder, those crowds, I think the curfew cut that in half for us. So it is a lot easier for our officers to manage 1,000 individuals than it is 2,000. So I can't speak out enough in support of what council has given us with the authority of the curfew, because it is definitely making our jobs easier. Now, we still have challenges, but it's definitely easier when we're not breaking up the large groups of individuals that are fighting, the assaults, the stampeding conditions that we have seen in years past. We have not seen that year to date. So I do want to thank the parents, the families, the guardians, the custodians that have heard our message, because for whatever reason, they heard it, they're complying. So thank you to the families and everyone for keeping your unattended minors away from the ocean front and contributing to the problem that we have. So Saturday, Deputy Chief Zellens was down there, did an outstanding job. We started seeing crowd conditions where we have historically, you've all seen the videos, in the DQ lot, in the 17th Street Park. We were able to disperse that, take the park and the DQ lot back, manage the traffic conditions. And I will tell you, the DC talked to me on the phone, and he said, for a warm Saturday night, this is about as best as it gets. We are not having fights. We are not responding to gun runs. Matter of fact, for Friday and Saturday, for both days, we only responded to 52 911 calls in our resort area. And except for the shooting, most of those were low-level calls. So let's talk about the incident. We're managing the crowd. It's dissipating. We're not anticipating any major issues. And at approximately 9:50 p.m., we have two groups walking in opposite directions on Atlantic. And we have video of this. From the initial approach to punches being thrown to guns being pulled and shots fired between the two groups, ladies and gentlemen, 12 seconds. So your VBPD, your public safety team, does a fantastic job. I'm incredibly proud of our men and women and the work that they do every day and every weekend. And one of their goals down there, what we task them with, is breaking up those fights, those conflicts, separating those folks where it looks like we're going to have problems. But I think you can all agree, no one out there can de-escalate a conflict that goes from approach to gunfire in 12 seconds. So our officers immediately responded, secured the scene, like I mentioned, rendered aid, identified witnesses, suspects, recovered the firearms, which led to the two arrests. And we just need the media's help. We need the community's help. Somebody knows who the third individual was, and they need to be held accountable. So we're looking at the media to help us send the message to our community. Call us. Give us any additional video, the tips, crime solvers, whatever it may be. We need that information so that we can hold everyone that had a piece of this accountable. So I'd like to provide some context, because we hear the community concerns, we hear the complaints, the questions from the community about staffing. So let me tell you, Saturday night, when this went down, we had approximately 90 plus officers and or sheriff's deputies that were concentrating on less than about a 10-block radius. I had more officers protecting the oceanfront and those 10 blocks than we had protecting the rest of the city of 247 miles. So we have to put that into perspective. The oceanfront is incredibly important to us. It is one of our economic engines, but we do have an entire city to protect. So I will tell you, I'm incredibly thankful to our officers, because when we upstaff, it doesn't come without cost. It means that other communities and other precincts and other districts in our city are giving up personnel to go down to the ocean front and manage these conditions. It means that we're asking our officers to cancel off days, personal time with their families, come in and upstaff what we need at the ocean front to provide that visibility and safety. And why that's incredibly important, while they're dealing with 8 individuals shot in a shooting at the ocean front out in the 4th precinct, they're dealing with 200 to 300 teens and young adults that came out of the Nova Adventure Park and were fighting, mention of guns, took a large police response from outlying resources not dedicated to the ocean front to go manage that incident. You know, folks, we're a large city, and we do have large city problems that we need to manage. And I will tell you that this is incredibly challenging for a department that is 87 officers short, that is almost an entire precinct. So we are really, when you say doing more with less, that's where we are. And we just have to remember that at some point this is not sustainable. We do worry about officer fatigue and burnout. And I will tell you that, it's not just sheer police visibility, right? We've had shootings at the ocean front, unfortunately, when we've had 30 officers down there, and we've had 300 officers down there. So once again, what I will tell you is, it is not just sheer police visibility that will solve this. It is a deterrence for all, it's a deterrence for some, but not all. It did not deter, 90 officers down there did not deter 2 18-year-olds from pulling guns and engaging in a shootout. So, I'd like to, and I should stay away from social media, but many of us, we follow to get the tenor of the community and see what the feedback on the department is and what occurred. And I will just read this one that I don't even remember where I found it, but it says, if you were to see the police presence, you would think somebody would be crazy to do something. They're on horses, they're on foot, they're on electric scooters, they're on electric bikes, they're in vehicles, they're everywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a matter of police visibility, it's a societal issue. And I would offer that these 2 individuals, or actually 3, they didn't come to our ocean front to enjoy the beach. They didn't come to shop at the stores. They didn't come to eat at the restaurants. They came armed, looking for conflict, unfortunately, and they walked up and down Atlantic until they found it. So I'd like to thank the mayor and council. I know the mayor mentioned it. They have done everything as an elected body that this police department has asked for. They have provided funding for technology, the shot spotter activation that told us exactly where the shots were when our officers heard it, moved them right to 1400 Atlantic. We don't have to wait on a 911 call. We moved right to the gunfire, confirmed where it was, the real-time crime center, our camera network that is down there that caught the incident, that allowed us to make the quick arrest. That's not free, and we thank council for their efforts. We thank them for their continued funding and recruiting to try to close, the 86, 87 vacancies that we have. And we thank them for being courageous enough to take a bold step and implement the imminent threat curfew, something that has not been done, I believe, in the Commonwealth, that we're the first to take this. And I thank all of you for taking that courageous step, because the curfew is having a positive impact on us. And we have decreased crowds, fewer youth, fewer fights currently, and we're not seeing the takeover and the knocking over of barricades when we have 400 or 500 young men and women that are running from what they believe are sounds of gunfire. So, for the future, I would just ask that and remind our community that your police department is just one part of the criminal justice system. I've heard some comments, and my phone has rang, and they're asking about bonds for individuals that are involved in these crimes. They're asking about jail time that they receive, early release. I'd just like to remind the community that that is not your police department. There are other parts of the criminal justice system that oversee all of that, but their voice matters. And those parts of the criminal justice system need to hear their voices, and they need to speak out and let the courts know, let our magistrates know when we're dealing with these types of issues. The General Assembly, like the mayor mentioned, we have asked for additional tools. We're doing the best with the legal tools that we have right now. I would ask the community to please reach out to your delegates, your senators, and express that your VBPD is asking for help. And we hope that they will hear that request next session and provide us the tools and assistance that we need to manage the risks that we have at the ocean front. And like the mayor mentioned, there will be additional conversations come tomorrow on what we can continue to do. The police department, with the guidance and oversight from the manager and the elected council that stands behind me, that fully supports this police department, and we will continue to do our best efforts. And we are looking at everything that we can do to make sure that we have no more large-scale incidents, but I think we're going to need the support of the General Assembly, because when we talk about looking at best practices from other cities and other cities that have managed to rein this in, they had the independent authority to enact their own legislation and make some hard challenges on citywide curfews and what that looks like. And those will be some further hard conversations. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. We will now open the floor to questions pertaining to this incident. In order to make sure that we hear from as many voices as possible, we are going to allow you 3 questions per outlet. And what I ask you to do, I'm going to utilize our list that I had you sign on, and some of you have outstanding handwriting. Others of you do not. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, once I call on you and I do the best I can, if you would say your name and the outlet that you represent, and then give us your question. And I'm going to start with Derek Little from 13 News Now.
Yeah, the question's for Chief with 13 News Now. I uprooted my family and brought my future wife here to the ocean front to put down roots and raise a family eventually. Her question yesterday as we were walking the ocean front is, will we be safe to raise our first child here and stay here? For those people in our community that are asking those questions, social media, I'm sure you know, what's your response as we try to move forward from this?
Absolutely. This is a safe city. We cannot let singular incidents, no matter the magnitude, affect the perception of peace and safety here. And what we pledge is that we're going to find a way to continue to mitigate that, because it's incredibly, I can tout the numbers. The numbers are, hey, we're incredibly safe compared to other large cities. Crime is at a 5-year low, but that really doesn't mean anything if our community doesn't feel safe, and we're aware of that.
Moving on top of that, moving from the 2025 tragedy and dealing with those numbers that you addressed in the budget request, how do we attract future great officers here, and how do you guys close that gap?
What we're seeing, what I'm seeing, what other large departments are seeing, it's not just trying to attract them to VBPD. We have great regional partners with our police departments here. And unfortunately, what we find ourselves is, stealing from each other. Where we can really use the assistance. It's not whether Virginia Beach Police Department has more benefits and pay, or Chesapeake's a better police department. It's the overall perception of the profession of policing. And we are still rebounding from the threats of, defunding from where we were in 2020. So positive stories showing the great work of the men and women of the policing profession, continuing to move that. I want to get political, but I will tell you that, just the talk of taking away qualified immunity that came up with this last General Assembly had people coming talking about leaving this police department in droves, and folks that were in the recruiting process, hey, if that happens, I don't want to be part of the profession. They're not looking to be penalized for a mistake that one may make. And none of us are perfect. These men and women make split-second decisions, and they have to be fully supported when they do. So that's what we can do, Derek.
I think my final question is just assurances for people that live in other parts of Virginia Beach as we increase our efforts at the oceanfront. How can we assure them of their safety when something happens in their part of the community?
And that is the balancing act. But the reality is unpleasant, but I think it's incredibly important to be transparent with the community that, the cries for more police at the oceanfront and a cop on every corner comes at a cost. And that comes to the other communities that reside in the city of Virginia Beach.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, Coulter from WTKR.
The young woman who's been arrested, do you know, was she here vacation? Did she just come down for the day?
Don't know.
What are you guys doing to keep people safe next week when we have stars, stripes, and spurs? That's obviously big event.
Yes.
The oceanfront, sure. Safety is top of mind for a lot of people right now. What are you guys doing when that event happens?
For that known pre-planned event, and historically week 17 has been very challenging and problematic for us. So we had 90 officers on a weekend where we had no known intelligence or historical issues. For that weekend, I think we are looking at, for Saturday night alone, the numbers I saw, up to 266 officers will be out in the oceanfront this coming weekend. And we can't do it. I got to mention to the sheriff and all of our different partners that help us, because that is an incredible draw, and we still have to protect the rest of this great city. So we will have a very robust police presence down there. That is one for VSP. We'll also be augmenting some of our traffic efforts for this known historical challenging weekend.
Both you and the mayor mentioned you'd like to see some help from the state legislators. Can you guys elaborate on that? What specifically would you like to see?
Well, I'll tell you what, we made a request for the pop-up events, and unfortunately it got tabled. And I think that if we really enhance and embolden our communication between us, and they understand the problems that the localities are confronting, I think they might be more open, because we're not making this in a vacuum. And once again, as Chief said, we had a number of years ago when they were talking about defunding the police and qualified immunity, they also removed some of the tools that police were able to use. And, once again, law enforcement is a challenge. And but once again, the balance between enforcing the law and not, infringing on people's rights. But what it really comes down to, what I was talking about with tough love, we're talking about we got to do what's necessary to save lives. And we'd like the General Assembly to be our partners. And if we have to go to the Congress and the Senate in the United States, we got to change the culture. We have to get back to a nation that respects laws, and that's going to be mission one.
Thank you, Coulter. John Doucette, WHRO.
Mayor, I'll start with you, but I'd like the chief to address this, if you will. You talked about the pop-up legislation, had that passed the General Assembly, would it have gone into effect until July? So if it does go forward next year, you're looking at next summer before that thing's online. So what are you going to do now to get to this season and prepare?
Well, that's John, that's one of my motivations about asking our General Assembly to do a ride-along, to see the immediacy and the urgency of doing something now. And that was also my recommendation, is that we do a task force of stakeholders, which includes the General Assembly and maybe some national folks, but also the community. We have a very robust, faith-based community in here in the city of Virginia Beach. And once again, like I said, we don't have the luxury of waiting a year. We have to start planting the seeds now. So when the General Assembly goes into session next year, we're ready to move with a positive message.
And John, as the mayor mentioned earlier, tomorrow at the closed session, we want to discuss the city council different options that are currently available to us. These aren't the best options because the impacts of what other enforcement opportunities would have a more far wide range and impact to businesses and residents as well. So there are other options that we'll bring to the city council for discussion, and depending on council action, we may be able to bring forth other tools to help address this issue. We'll brief city council tomorrow, and then based on the council discussion, we'll determine the time frame on taking any action on any possible options to enhance our enforcement efforts. What's that, sir? You won't discuss what those are? Not at this time. I got to talk to the council about it, and then after that, we'll bring it forward. But any action would have to take a public vote of the council, and then we'll make that information available at this time. But we do intend to discuss it with the council because we all take this very seriously, and we'll hope to bring something forward for consideration. Chief, I don't know if you want to add anything.
John, do you have one more? Okay, thank you. Stacy Parker, the Virginian pilot.
How are the injured doing?
Thank you, Stacy. All non-life threatening, one that was critical, but we believe that they are stable currently.
And then you mentioned about Dana Williams's gun may have been used previously to extinguish that incident?
At least two other incidents that we have a correlation from the ATF's National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. We need to delve in where those actually occurred and what those offenses are. But it just goes back to, we talk about the community guns and the history of these crime guns, and here is one that is used in a mass shooting in Virginia Beach that's been used in other offenses, at least preliminarily, based on our NIBIN results.
Okay. And my last question is, will you charge the 17-year-old for curfew violation?
We've already done that. Yes.
Thank you, Stacy. Markeisha Jackson from Wavy.
Hello. First things first, we talked about the manpower that's at the oceanfront on weekends dealing with this, and then you mentioned the Nova Adventure Park incident, and both of these incidents involved a large amount of young people.
Yes.
What would you both say to the youth, people in this age range that seem to be finding themselves in these situations time and time again?
Well, once again, want to thank the guardians and the parents from Virginia Beach, because I think what we're seeing in our experience is they have heeded the call to action and kept their young men and women from being out in these locations. So if we can spread that message beyond the beach, we greatly appreciate the media's efforts in doing that.
And if I can say, the thing is, we have to get the guns away from youth. And, right now we have, it's a culture, it's a way of doing things, it's a new generation. Back in the day, there used to be fist fights, and then maybe folks would become friends. But nowadays, the immediate thing to do is use a firearm. This is a culture that we have to change. We have to use faith-based. We got to get the parents involved. We got to get society involved. But most of all, we have to get the tools that we need for the police to identify the people that are carrying the guns and preemptively get them away before a terrible accident happens.
Absolutely, and I know we talked about wanting to work with the General Assembly and things like that. Are you all hopeful that the General Assembly will take a closer look at the certain gun laws that impact public areas and things like that? And also along with that, do you want them to take a look at, just like you said, those ride-alongs, what the officers are going through? In what way do you want that help from the General Assembly?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it would benefit, don't forget, these are all the mayors in the 757 are collaborating. We're working on this together. We had the city managers get together and come up with best practices. We had the police chiefs working. As I indicated, crime does not honor a boundary. And but once again, this is not only for Virginia Beach. This is for all the cities in the 757 and all the cities. Every city in this Commonwealth are facing similar problems. And I think we have to get together collectively, agree, like I said in the beginning, what is the problem? What caused it? What are we going to do to fix it?
Markeisha, you have our last question of the day, if you have it. Gotcha, yep. Lastly, just for one more time, just who's going to be in that room tomorrow at this meeting?
Okay, once again, we're going to be with the city manager, council members, and but also our city attorney. You know, once again, we can't become a nation of laws if we're going to be breaking them or, you know, usurping them in any way. We want to find out what's going on, what are some of the best practices that home rule states are using. Once again, we're with the Dillon rule. And so once again, we have to be compliant to what the General Assembly says. Other states, you know, can make immediate decisions. But once again, you know, we have to play with the cards that are dealt with. But once again, we're going to do what we can to get the tools that we need to do the job that we need to do.
Well, this concludes today's briefing. I just want to let you know that updates as they become available will be made available on our social media as well as our site. So thank you for coming, and I'll let you get back to getting the story in. All right, thank you.
Okay, back here in the studio following that press conference between Police Chief Paul Newdigate out of Virginia Beach and Virginia Beach Mayor Bobby Dyer, and they were accompanied by a number of city leaders who stood up at the podium with them as they addressed the shooting on Saturday night at the oceanfront. Again, a shooting that injured 8 people, though there were no fatalities in that shooting. Now we continue our special report just with a summarization of what we heard during that press conference. First, new information on suspects. Isaiah Charity has turned himself into police. Sounded like right around 2:40 p.m. Isaiah Charity was one of the suspects police were searching for following that shooting. He has turned himself into police around 2:40 p.m. Now, there is a third suspect who is still at large, who police are still searching for. A third suspect remains at large, and police urging those in the community to help if possible in identifying that third suspect. Now, police have described that suspect as a black male who is wearing a hoodie. So the search continues for who was wearing a hoodie in that incident. So the search continues for that third suspect, a dark-colored hoodie with possible red lettering on the back. However, Isaiah Charity has turned himself in around 2:40 p.m. Now, Jemiah Williams had already been apprehended by police going into today. We have reported that she has admitted to firing shots during the incident. We also heard from Police Chief Newdigate during that press conference that the gun that was fired by Jemiah Williams has in fact been linked to other incidents up in Richmond. The firearm that was recovered from Jemiah Williams has been linked to incidents up in Richmond. At least that is some intel that they are receiving. So that is the update on suspects at this time. In terms of the incident itself, we did learn that police do have video of the incident. We also got information that there was an initial approach, punches thrown, guns pulled, and shots fired. From the time of the initial approach to the time of shots fired, 12 seconds elapsed. 12 seconds between the two groups approaching each other and shots being fired, and there were also punches thrown during that incident. Now, for more context, on Saturday night, Chief Newdigate said there were approximately 90 plus officers or sheriff's deputies concentrating on a less than 10-block radius. He said they had more officers protecting the oceanfront than protecting the rest of the city. He said that their department is currently 87 officers short. They're doing more with less, and he did include that at some point this is not sustainable. But for the time being, 90-plus officers at the oceanfront on Saturday night. Now, we've talked about how after the shooting at the oceanfront in early March, there was a curfew implemented. Chief Newdigate said he believes that curfew is working. He believes, as he said in this press conference, that curfew may have cut the crowd in half on Saturday night for police to patrol. He said that they have staffed up already at the oceanfront and that is unusual. Historically, that's not something they would do this early, but they have already staffed up at the oceanfront in preparation for incidents like this. He said things that happened last year and incidents around the nation in regards to spring break have made it imperative that we pull and move officers down to the oceanfront. So on Saturday night, they were staffed up with more officers at the oceanfront than patrolling the rest of the city. Now, let me make sure I have all the updates that you need to hear while going over my notes. So there will be a meeting tomorrow in a closed session with the city council and the city attorney to try to find out what tools are available to try to find solutions to this problem. So again, a closed session meeting tomorrow involving the city attorney to try to find out some solutions. What is available as a possible solution to this problem? As for Mayor Bobby Dyer, he spoke about a world on fire, a world where anger, hatred, and violence, disregard of life and laws has become the new norm. He stated that our community is hurting with continued violence and has called this a national problem in addition to a local problem, and repeatedly stated the need to act together. He spoke about other cities and the need to have communication and teamwork in order to solve this problem. I want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. I know many of you just watched the entirety of that press conference, but just in case anyone got there late, 266 officers will be out at the oceanfront this weekend. That was the update from Chief Newdigate. So, these also said that police visibility alone will not solve this, that they have seen shootings with 30 officers and shootings with 300 officers. So there are other things needed, and those are some of the things Bobby Dyer spoke about and that may come from the meeting tomorrow. All right, that'll do it for our special report here on 13 News Now. You see the forum that we're in is not typical for our 4, 5, and 6 newscasts. We carried live impact news into this special report, and every day from 10 a.m. to noon and 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. we have live impact news available on 13 News Now Plus. If you want to see more delivery from this format, please tune in anytime. For now, I'm Connor Reel. For my producer, Nia Campbell, we've appreciated you joining us for this special report. We will be back on 13 News Now at 4 o'clock p.m. with your regularly scheduled broadcast. Thanks for joining, everybody.